have a problem with being a little bit klepto on pen, so I will make sure we turn it.
I think I might have taken it somewhere. I don't have, and that's how it passes. Right. Yes, just like the virus. Different reports, so yeah, I guess deferred. That's why I just on that minute percent. What's the word? It's a short meeting. We had a just total crazy weather thing too. It ended up being postponed until 7.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's a first.
Oh.
Get away, Stacy.
Council, can I have your attention enough? I'll give them. Let's go ahead and start, okay? On behalf of the City Council and the staff of Syracuse City, we'd like to welcome you to our, this is a combined special business meeting with a work session. So we'll begin with our special meeting. I've asked location on our meetings tonight, and then Corinne, would you lead us in a pledge?
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee at the beginning of this meeting, full of gratitude for the opportunity we have to discuss the affairs of the city and our citizens and the operations of this great city. We ask thee to watch over us, inspire us, guide us, and point us in directions that we may not fully understand, so that we can push for the best possible outcomes for all participants in these discussions. And we are again grateful for this opportunity, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, I would entertain a motion to adopt the business meeting agenda. So moved. The motion by Dave. Do I have a second? Second by Jordan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? We have received no public comment by email for either meeting that we'll have this evening. Therefore, we'll turn to those that are joining us by Zoom. Let's go there first. Do we have anybody there from the public in Zoom? I don't see anybody, Cassie.
No, it's staff.
Just staff. Okay. So we'll turn it over to you, those of you that are here in person. If any of you would like to address the council on any issue, we'd be happy to entertain that for 3 minutes. If you'd state your name and your place of residence, so that we can identify who you are. And is there a better place for them to stand? Would it be better, could we ask you to come down and stand in front of the head of the table down here so we can see you on the result?
There's more chairs over here. If you guys.
Sorry. No, we'll figure it out.
So is there anybody that would like to join the council? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment then.
Hey, no, sorry. I was trying to be second.
Well, you'll have to be first.
All right, my name is Mary Montgomery. I live on 700 South, 4500 West in West Point. You all know the annexation thing is coming up. I have been fighting 2+ years with West Point City over whether or not 700 is a public way. The reason for my shirt, which says "Not all witches live in Salem," is because someone at this West Point City called me a real bitch, but I go with the bitch part, and I'll play it. 700 has been owned by my family, the Montgomerys, for over 100 years. The 8 acres behind me that was sold off was sold by my husband's uncle. Told the people that there was access. It is a dirt land. That's all it is. I have to tell you the size of it. I'm nervous and I hate speaking in front of people. According to the city's current zoning map, the property that Mark and Mary's house sit on, which is mine and my husband's, is zoned R1 residential. West Point City Ordinance 17.25 Tornado 080 requires a minimum front yard setback of 30 feet in the R1 zone. The front corner of my house is only around 31 feet from the edge of the road. If the roadway is expanded by more than 1 foot towards our home, it will be in non-compliance with city ordinance and therefore illegal if the city approves the subdivision that's coming in behind it. Like I said, I've been fighting this. My neighbors to the south of me have said absolutely not. We don't want to sell it. Taxes on it. I'm going to say this. But it is a dirt lane of only 18 feet wide. That is not enough for the 200 houses that they want. 400 that you guys want to put into the flood zone. I'm sorry, I am going to fight this. You will probably get to know me. West Point knows me well, but I will fight you. There are a few neighbors, public speaking, who will fight you also. Like I said, the house down below me belonged to my husband's great-grandfather. That's the old one down the bottom of 700. If you would like to come drive down my lane, if I stand out on the front porch and stare at you and give you dirty looks, please drive down and wave at me and say, I'm just looking at the lane. Because I do that. I'm sorry. I don't like people down there. It's a dead end. Would you want people down there doing what people do on dead ends down there? So just so you know, this will be a fight. Thank you for your time.
Did you give us your name and place of residence?
I did.
Mary Montgomery.
I live on 700. My address is 696 South,
Thank you.
but 700 is.
So we have your contact information.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yes, that works.
Yes.
My name is Terry Wilbur. Please use sunglasses. I'm very photophobic at it. This'll don't blow up my face. That's a great day. I'm a lift through it. But I didn't tell people when you're cool, the sun always shines. I live right next door to Montgomery's. I bought that place in 1980. We live in that very special area for intrinsic reasons. Sunsets, the stars, and the privacy, quite honestly. I moved to a very rural area in 1981 down there. Retired is such a lovely place. The last about month and a half, just north and east of me, I don't know if this irritates anyone, but beep, 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 beep. And it's a constant. It is terribly. Okay. This is only going to add to the situation. I don't know what you folks are thinking, but when that lake ever comes up, whatever's down there is going to get flooded. When was the big flood? 80, 81? Something like that. Yeah, right in our backyard. So I don't think they'll ever approve it geologically. We're building down there. Just personal opinion. I'm no geologist or builder, but anyway, we have been fighting this for a long time, and that road has always been private, the dirt lane, the city, county, nobody's ever maintained it. Nobody said a thing about it. I don't have a lot to say because I live right next door, except I don't want people in my backyard when I'm out there naked in the hot tub. I have nobody wants to me there, you know? And now it's going to change my lifestyle. Stargazing. We call it development. I call it. When I lived down there, my closest neighbor was 3 acres away. Wow, cornfields, you know? But now, anyway. I wish you'd reconsider that. I don't know if you call it progress. I don't know what's driving this money. Really ought to think about it. I think just we're being very intruded upon. Okay? It's no longer a rural community. And it's only going to get worse as we see that. Thank goodness I'm a land baron. I can move. I have 5 other residents. I don't want to be forced out because I would like my children to come up and inherit my home. Thank you so much for your time.
Would both of you, Ms. Montgomery, and would you two give your phone number to Noah, right? So we haven't do that. And I don't
I
want-
did when I registered, but if that is
Is it
good,
worth clarifying that we're not proposing anything?
Yes. You want to clarify that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to be clear, this is something being presented to us. We saw this for the first time, what, 3 days ago?
Thursday evening.
So the city is not proposing anything. We are hearing proposal from a developer. Every developer has the right to propose whatever they want, wherever they want. But you're right, we have the opportunity to say yes or no. But just to be clear, I know that you guys think we're the ones proposing this, or we're the ones that are even advocating for this. None of the above. This is just us hearing a proposal.
And we don't
We know that.
Okay.
We've been fighting with the developers.
Okay,
With the
want to make
city
sure that
and
was
the
clear.
developers.
Thank you, Mayor.
but you guys are the authority on it, so we have got to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we want to hear from you, but we just have it out.
Publicly, I don't want your phone number out there. So. Well, when we get to the next agenda, we're going to strike something from that agenda. So the annexation we're going to talk about tonight is.
Should you have us now?
It has, yeah, we're going to strike it. Okay. Any other public comment? Other than from West Point?
Or if
Come
you're
on,
from West
city
Point,
livers.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. Cassie, you want to go with the canvas for this?
I actually sent out an email to you just before the meeting started, but I printed paper copies if you guys want to go through that. For reviewing. The packet did include the preliminary on that night. And then one other change between election night and this meeting. All the tabulation of provisional ballots that they received at the location on election day, and then it was received in the mail between election day and the day before the campus. So you can see that single page report, this is the Excel spreadsheet as it. There was no signature on the ballot, or the signature did not match. And then so that was either they were postmarked after the required date. So, if you have any questions on that part of it, the people that do not have a signature matching, this is the one who get a question on the most. The county does reach out to all the people that they have a question on. Maybe you're right. And they give that person the opportunity to come. And then we'll just go over the final results. So you can see on the first page of this summary, there's 17,228 registered voters in the city, and there were 4,238 ballots cast. So that's 4.6%. And so voting for Syracuse Mayor Dave Mon received 2,229 votes. Mike Haley received 1,514 votes. And Kaylin Jordan received 461 votes. So Dave Mon and Mike will be Syracuse City Council, Gordon G. Savage received 1,998 votes. Jennifer Carver, 1,702 votes. Brett Reagan, 1,225 votes. Paul Watson, 1,086 votes. Aaron Johnson, 856 votes. Matt Mercer, 457 votes. So Gordon B. Savage, Jennifer Carver, Brett D. Reagan, and Paul Watson. If there are no questions or, I guess, objections to these reports, I would ask for a vote to certify the results and then have a form for you.
I have a couple of questions. Again, maybe you don't know the answer. So it looks like 4,238 ballots were cast, but yet, for example, in the mayor, only 4,204 votes were counted. Is it just that some ballots did not vote for the mayor?
Yep, it would just be an undervoted ballot.
question. Do we have a count of how many votes were for the candidates that
So
were
legally,
disqualified?
legally, we're not allowed to release that number. So I don't even have that yet from the county, but when we do receive that, they were not allowed to release it.
Other questions? Nikki?
I can make a motion to certify.
Certified this election.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will record that as unanimous. Hey, Robert, do you want to give us a second more? For those of you from West Point, at each of our meetings, we're getting a report on our secondary water. We have our own water system. So we're just keeping our residents informed of what our water usage.
So council, here's where we're at for an overview of the water. We have received 80% of the water supply. We're right on track with where we expected. And this is a week by week glance. The red is showing how much water has been used for that week. And obviously it's extremely low, and that was due to all of the precipitation that we've had this week, which certainly helped us out, and our residents have responded very, very favorably to water and rain. So this is actually a really, really good representation of, well, it shows that our residents are being very responsible. I'm very pleased with that. I just encourage the momentum to keep going. So, well done.
So what I'm seeing from this is our secondary system should be constantly charged. So no one should have any pressure applied to this.
That is correct. And we've noticed that since about the beginning of August. We see low pressure complaints,
I haven't seen any complaints on Facebook either, which is a rarity.
particularly where it's in the drought year.
Another
That
thing-
tells me people are really, really responsible.
Along with the rain. Yeah, well, they're going to start hatching because you know, the little pool, it'll be about 2 rows between them.
West Nile virus has been affected, so there's going to be-
It's actually a really hot year for the
So we have 4 weeks left in the season, and next week we'll go to a little bit lower supply, but I don't anticipate that being a problem. So we're going to be in good shape.
Just out of curiosity, so let's say that the temperatures don't decrease. Can we bump up our supply since we haven't used all of it, obviously? Is there any reason why we do that, just to keep the pressures?
Or do we take in certain amount when it's like pre-ordered?
Yeah, this is kind of like a pre-ordered amount where we supply some.
We can't say, we only use half of it, let's crank this sucker up for the last.
I don't
Let's just set the
anticipate.
beat.
Well, I think the more logical question is there going to be any remains in our reservoirs?
Yes.
Will we, okay, so is there any way that we just storage, or do we address that as?
Yeah, our reservoirs don't hold, there's more than like a day's worth of use. Echo, this is where it really makes a difference. Echo, by the way, is 16% full. So it's still low, but it hasn't changed from last year. It was 16% full too. So and typically I see it draining about 1%. So the rain certainly helps that too. They didn't produce as much.
Have we identified what the critically environmental stability? Yeah,
So
because that scares me a lot, because it doesn't come back in 1 year. We lose the fish and the plant life, and it doesn't just come bounce back.
there is certainly a risk in that. When Echo was built, there's something in the contract with the Bureau of Reclamation that allowed Echo to completely. Next year, if the drought continues and we don't have a good precipitation over the winter, then we can
thing to know also is, how will that change? I know a majority of the county started their water on time, so we have 4 weeks left, but a majority of the county does not. They're shutting off on September 1st. Are we expecting that to have an impact? It seems like it'll.
We will still get water delivered to us.
Right.
Both of our suppliers will deliver to us. And farmers will have their.
Like you said, it's a set amount that everybody received,
Yeah.
whether they took it
Yeah,
early or
they will
late.
just lower the amount coming through the canals because other people will be turned off. All right.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Robert. That's been a valuable tool to us.
We already made a decision for next year to postpone, do a start late as well.
We discussed that.
Let's wait till after the season is
We
over.
decided to have that discussion in the strategic plan.
Because we don't have an ordinance start date. We just need to make a decision.
Right.
All right, let's go to item number 5, discussion or action regarding the petition of Scott Shepherd for culinary water services outside of the city limits. Paul, you want to start us off on this one?
Sure, I'll just kind of walk you through. This is an unusual petition because we don't get a lot of these. So I just wanted to let you know kind of what the ordinance and statutory framework is for you. Under state code, we are permitted to provide water services outside of our municipal boundaries if you want to. There's 2 ways to do it. First, you could actually establish by ordinance a water service area, and then anyone within that water service area would be able to just sign up without coming to the council. If you don't do that, the statute allows for you to enter a contract with people who are outside. So that would be proposed here because we don't have enough interest to create a zone. Pretty much the requirements are in state code are you have to be fair with the people. You can't extort them and try to make excessive amount. You can treat it fairly just like everyone else. And then you look to our city code. Pretty much there's a threshold, couple of questions. First, is water available? And secondly, would it deprive citizens of water? And as long as those 2 are okay, then that means that you can go ahead and consider whether to authorize it or not. There's nothing in state code or city code that requires us to allow the connection. But under the code, they would be responsible for all the costs of installation, any extensions to names or anything outside of their lateral. We need to update the cities. It sounds as though all the fees have been paid in advance on this, including connection fees and impact fees. So they're ready for the council's decision. Robert can let you know on those initial questions of whether there's water available and whether we deprive the city or city of water.
Is that here? There's a petition to you. Sorry. Would you like to come and address the council? You stand at the desk.
My husband couldn't be here, so my son's here. We have lived at 4919 West 27 years. We have 2 artesian wells. The last 5 to 6 years, though the output of those wells increased greatly. They are struggling to keep the water flowing. We've been delayed. We've had the contractor there a couple of times getting ready to excavate to help us, and we found out we have to come to finish receive that. Our business situation is critical. The way my husband's got the well flowing right now, cold weather hits, we will no longer have the ability to get that water out of the well.
There is flow, but that flow is slower than previous years.
Robert, could you comment on whether this is going to further drain on for the rest of the city?
So this application is for just indoor water use only, not outdoor.
Correct.
Use. So indoor use is typically we see about 50 gallons per person per day. And 2 people in this household. So a 1 month period would be like 3,000 gallons. A typical house told you would see some, Steve might correct me a little bit with late season utility billing, but I think we typically see somewhere around 6,000 gallons a month in a household, between 4 to 8, anywhere between there. I expect for just 2 people to be less than that. I don't see a big impact on our water supply.
Thank you. Dave, you want to start on this discussion?
But I don't see any reason why we would deny this application. It makes sense. The water is there. The connections are there. It's just getting from the house to the front of the main street, so it's really pretty simple. And when we look at the big picture here, if everybody that was that close to one of our connections applied, we're only talking about 20 households left that are in the county. So we'll probably end up with these people in the city at some point because the county is putting that pressure on us. I keep hearing that when I go to some of the meetings where they say, look, Weber County did it. They made sure that nobody was left in the county. But I'm not pushing that, but it could happen to us. So we really probably should just let this go through now because the need is there.
Any other discussion, council?
I have a couple of questions. So historically speaking, when you are getting on city water, you give up your water shares. As far as now, are there culinary water shares as well?
No.
Okay,
The impact.
So this is
Right.
only the impact.
Maybe with the permit.
right. So the next question I have is, so if I wanted to drill a well, I can't. Is that because I don't own water shares at all? Just help me understand that difference.
So you
apply.
Can I drill a well in my property?
You cannot. Weaver Basin has claimed all underground water. So
Really?
they own it all.
I'm
That's
just
kind
gonna
of where I'm going.
I'm
with
just gonna
this.
say you would need to consult with the Division of Water Resources, or excuse me, Water Rights. The Division of Water Rights will control who can drill wells and how deep they go, how much water is yielded out of it. They regulate it, and it's by license, well drilled.
And we,
So
and
they
we
can tell you
we
yes or
looked
no.
into that, to see if that was a possibility to drill a new well. They're not giving any new well permits out at the current time.
No, that's what this is just me being educated. And
So it's not necessarily what we,
it's not a water rights issue. It's more,
well,
Water Rights does
Yes,
control wells.
it does, especially if you
production.
own water rights beforehand, like historically or something.
Because the city wells have a regulation of how much we can draw out. Not draw the full amount, but it is regulated by the state.
so is there any reason why they would be asked to abandon their wells if they get hooked up to city water?
Cross-contamination.
Okay, that's-
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and I made that clear to the applicant, is this well cannot be connected, cross-connected into the system. You
Correct.
understand that. The other.
No, that was it. So
But along with that,
Oh,
can
you
they,
got the well.
can they revert
You
back?
can retain their well.
okay,
Just
Uh,
never
As long as
connected.
it's proof, they have to receive a proof on the well and they can keep the well.
Okay.
But-
We
then
hope
if
to
you
do
ever-
that to water our.
The livestock.
For your yard.
For our yard and our livestock
Okay.
and our back pasture.
but it will have
Hoping that
to
it'll
be
be able to do that.
disconnected from any
From
source
this house.
Correct.
that hooks
We're
up
not
to
gonna
ours.
call. You can't
Right, you
call.
No.
can't have a double.
Okay, and so you've already got this all worked out,
Yes, we've got the permits and everything's in place,
and
just
So you
your
can't-
permission.
yeah, so that there is a valve that will physically disconnect the wells as we hook
I
up.
think you
Not a
actually,
valve.
not just a
It'll be
valve,
fixed.
because that would be a possible cost.
can't-
Okay, so
It
it's
has to be a
cross-contaminated
full
water.
physical
Yes.
disconnection.
And we've had the plumber come and take care of all of that, so
Okay.
we're just waiting for.
Right.
But as far as giving up any water rights to a well, no, that's not something that,
You want to do that.
because I don't know, where does Syracuse City get their culinary water? Do they have a well?
Where
is
that?
How long ago was that drilled?
Well, they're small. They don't take care of most of the city. I think they're like 8% of the city. So most of it comes through Weaver.
Lisa, do you have anything that? you
No,
want-
I would hate to ever say you can't have water.
So I would actually recommend
I say.
we allow this. I
make
think
sure
this is
that
a good
Would you
thing.
make that a full motion?
I would love to make that formal motion. I motion that we accept the petition from Scott Shepherd for culinary water services outside city limits at 3919 West, 2700 South.
Do I have a second? Second by Dave. Any further discussion?
So long as all of the things are resolved.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We-
Yeah, unanimous.
We will have a city inspector out there.
Okay.
Just to be sure things are done correctly.
Pseudo welcome to the city.
Thank you.
Sort of.
I said pseudo.
We call the water welcome.
It's the water
Let's move
welcome.
to, let's move to item 6. This is going to be a public hearing, anything having to do with expenditures of money, we need to take that before the public. But let me have Brody just give you a little heads up of what this is about, and then I'll open that for public comment.
So this is an application for a donation from the city to the local Kiwanis sub. They do this every year. It's a Kiwanis Hope of America golf tournament. It's hosted at Swinney Golf Course. The request that they had this year was $300 donation and a 4-person golf team to participate in the event. Proceeds for this event, I believe, go to the Hope of America Awards that they hand out to local schools, elementary schools. I think it's typically 6th graders to exhibit leadership qualities, and they are presented at their end of year assembly as the Hope of America Award. This is a national and international organization made up of a bunch of different local clubs and local organizations. Representatives are down below here on the screen. Terry Palmer is the representative that has presented this to the city. And he's just joining us on Zoom. He was originally going to attend, but he had something come up and like not able to do this.
Terry, are you where you can respond?
Okay,
There you go.
okay, ask if he's talking to you.
Terry, can you,
Muted.
counsel?
Then it's unmuted.
Okay. This is Terry. Am I on now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a statement that I wrote earlier today. Mayor and council members, thank you for this opportunity to explain the 2nd annual Kiwanis Hope of America Golf Tournament at the Glen Eagle Golf Course in Syracuse. All proceeds above the course cost will go to the children in North Davis County. Last year, we spent $2,700 on a speech machine for Fremont Elementary School, and we spent another $1,000 in conjunction with Walmart and gave coats, gloves, and beanies for children in the local schools. We have done this for the last 4 years. Clearfield City will also be putting a team on the course. Kiwanis has been rewarding children in the 6th grade and 9th grade with Hope of America Awards and Freedom Leadership Awards for the last 50+ years. It is one of my greatest joys to see these students receive their award. I am asking the City Council to fund a foursome of golfers on the course for a total of $300. We will have a scramble with certain places where prizes will be given out. It is a very decent way to bring money in for a good purpose. So that is what we're doing with this tournament, and we would love to have Syracuse participate in there.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Now, as I mentioned, we are meeting, we're in a public hearing. And I'll now declare that we are in public hearing. If you're a Syracuse resident, we'd like to hear from you about what your feelings are about the city sponsoring the Kiwanis Club in this event. So if there's anyone here who would like to address the council, we are in public hearing, and like before, we'll go 3 minutes if you'll state your name and address. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Let's see, Seth, or is this is Councilman Savage, isn't it?
Yep.
Yep. Do you want to lead us out?
Sure. First of all, I think this sounds like, and I love it when these types of clubs sponsor these types of events. I think this is a worthy cause. I think this is fantastic. My only issue here is I struggle to take taxpayer money and use it as, I don't know, donate it to someone else, even if it is for a great cause. These people worked really hard. They pay their taxes. And I just don't feel right taking that money and saying, good job, and use it as kind of for something like this. If we have money that is something other than taxpayer money, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if we have some interest with some fund with lots of interest on it or something like that, I would be okay with that, but I just don't know how I can in good conscience take taxpayer money and give it away.
Okay. Let's go around the room. Lisa?
I tend to agree. And like Jordan said, it's a great cause, but when you give it as an award for somebody for winning, I would rather see that come from a business, because if it comes from my business, then it's my money and I'm giving it. But when it's from Syracuse, it's taxpayers' dollars, and they have no say in how we're using it. So why don't you approach us as a business, Terry, and I would be much more comfortable as a business owner funding this and sponsoring this event rather than speaking for the taxpayers.
Okay. Corinne?
Hey, that's what I was planning on doing after you said that.
I'll talk to you after this.
That's great. And I would concur with all of that. Last year, I made a private donation to make sure that the city could go. And
You did awesome.
so, if we need to go that route, I would feel better about that too.
Okay, Seth?
I'm a little torn on it. I think when I read the statement that, we need to kind of weigh the community benefit versus the cost. I think it's pretty nominal on the cost. And I think the community benefit, based on the description of what Terry presented, would outweigh the $300. And I think it could be segmented to where that is not necessarily going towards prize money, but we could, feel good about it going towards
if we can donate services, something like that, I'm good with that.
I just don't know who would golf. But that's where I'm at. So
Aaron's a great golfer.
I am not.
All right.
So I would not go.
All right.
I am not
David?
either.
Well, I concur that I can't agree to spend tax money on this, because that's a decision that, there are people who struggle to pay taxes. We should be more respectful of that. But I'm also a little concerned. I have no problem whatsoever if the city had 4 employees that want to take the day off and go participate in this. But that's kind of money, taxpayer money too. If we're gonna, I'd have a hard time if people said, oh, look, Syracuse City gets to get paid to golf for a day. That's not really fair to them. So that's my feeling on it.
Okay. Well, Terry, looks like it's not going to come from the city. And maybe you could
Oh,
approach it.
sterling quality, we'll get you.
Maybe you could approach 3 of us privately.
Yeah, I will do that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then sorry about this COVID situation for me.
Well,
No worries.
we appreciate you letting us know, but that's private.
Stay well.
Stay well. Stay
Okay,
well.
thanks.
So I'd entertain a motion to turn this down.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Jordan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 4 to, that's 4 to 1, Cassie. Okay. All right, Noah?
Okay.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks,
Well,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. The Bennett rezone. We talked about this last time. Obviously, this was reconsidered and then tabled. Since last time, the developer has provided a development agreement that would limit the first phase so that the water line looping wouldn't be a problem, and they've agreed to take care of all the drainage stuff that we were concerned about. You have any questions?
They just reduced it into phases as well. So I would assume that it makes sense for me and alleviates my concerns. And I think Robert would agree that these were the major concerns that we discussed, and
This addressed the concerns.
I would support it now.
So I had a question. So what is the trigger? At what point do we say you may commence phase 2? That wasn't clear to me.
That's one thing I wanted to ask as well.
15 lots.
No,
So
that's
no,
phase 1.
That's phase 1.
What allows them to?
At
be
what
able
point
to
do they
do
say,
that?
yay,
Robert?
verily, you may begin phase 2?
Robert?
When the water main can be looped and connected back through.
Okay,
some other place.
So until the water main can be connected to another place.
right, it cannot go.
They
outside
can't,
phase
it's
2.
just not. And is that going to be documented in this? Because I think it should be.
That's already that's.
Yeah, I
the
read it, but I
15
didn't
lots is
understand
there.
it, so that could be.
Paul,
do you want to respond to
Yeah, that's in section 3 of the agreement says
Sweet.
they will hold development phase 2 until they submitted an appropriate infrastructure plan approved by city staff to loop or otherwise ensure adequate water pressure and otherwise meet applicable single-family residence standards for
Perfect.
phase 2 lots.
Okay. but
I
see,
read
when
that, but I want to
that-
make sure that everyone was good with that. But
Okay.
that says what I think it says.
But I don't think it does, because my concern is what if they say, well, here's the adequate plan?
Then that's.
I
Has
mean,
to be approved
it-
by us.
The plan has to be actionable. That's the separation that I have with that wording.
But it says approved by city staff. Do we assume that our staff can?
Figure that out.
I
You want
I don't
to-
want a
They're
future,
city
what I don't want
engineers,
is a
you know.
future meeting to somebody say, well, here's the plan. They're going to loop it in as soon as that's available. And then it gets built 20 years earlier. I mean, obviously, nobody really wants to do that. But if you don't write these things, what happens is somebody turns around and sells the development rights because they're like, hey, well, we got all this. Now we don't want to be the ones that follow through. And of course, nobody tells you that that's going to be the plan, but you never know what offer comes to the table. So if you don't get it documented correctly, then the next person says, well, all I have to do is give you the plan. Done. That's where I'm at with that.
You want to just
Can we
add a
authorize
phrase or
that in
something?
the development?
Can we
agreement?
make
Try
that
not
more
to-
airtight?
It
That
does
it's
say it needs to be
it's-
approved by city staff. So that would mean we need to meet all of our development standards. And if we've got developments and standards that Public Works has put together and this council's approved, I don't know that we need to do more than that, but if you want to add a section.
It doesn't come back to council now, and it's just up to city staff, and that concerns me only because we had another issue 6 months ago or so where it was an interpretation issue. Should this go to council, or is it just interpreted that we can just act upon this? And I want to make sure that they actually have the adequate water thing, it's done. It's not just, well, we could interpret this another way and help these guys out.
So you're saying you want this to come back to the city council to decide whether their plan is adequate or not?
I want to make it more airtight in that
Has
I
to be
want
a plan
something
being.
that the plan is actionable at that time. I
Meaning there's
don't want
another
it to say that they
development
submit a
in
plan. I want to
progress.
be,
Well,
that
they
it
have to-
is,
but they have to
can
build
be
the plan.
actionable.
Maybe in the first section, where it says they can move on to phase 2, you can just clarify that the trigger is the water line.
The trigger is the water line is available to hook into.
Yeah.
That's
You're
the
saying in phase
trigger.
1? Or in
Section 1, where it talks
Section
about.
1
Because
talks about
that solves
phasing.
it. Then you can't do
On
it
that
without
phasing.
being able to complete.
If that will resolve his concerns, I'm not really worried about it, but that's fine if we can put in one sentence that says,
I'm okay with that as well.
Consist of all remaining lots proven, there are 3 zoning guidelines. And then we just put, and a approved
Water
The
connection.
15
Water connection.
the
Water connection
15
is
lot
installed.
Is codified, isn't it? I think the 15 lot.
That one's
uh,
already
is,
in,
yeah. You can't have more than
fine.
15 lots
Right,
without
that's already in.
a looped water line, so that's codified already, but we can just add the sentence to make it crystal
yes,
clear.
that's fine. If that satisfies Mr. Mon, that's fine with me.
I have one other concern that hasn't been raised, and that would just be the drainage. I want to know if there's a willingness to write something that says that the neighbors need to agree that the drainage has been handled. Because what I don't want to see is drainage. We approved a plan for drainage, but we all know we've come through times where the drainage plan didn't succeed. And sure, they have to fix it, but I don't want to be even the threat that the neighbor or the neighboring properties could come and say, well, city council, you agreed to this and now I'm flooded out and I have damage. And it's your fault, you approved it and you didn't do your due diligence to make sure that I was protected as a neighboring property. So can we put in a clause that either the neighbors agree that that they are aware this is happening, or because I'm not saying that every neighbor gets a say in this, but we do know that the land has to be built up, which means the drainage has to go somewhere. So I'm just really concerned that.
Could we have Robert maybe speak to this?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
But I think.
But 1 second, can you come up to the table? Because I don't think we're capturing
Right.
everything.
So the microphone.
I can't hear you.
It's fine.
And, yeah. And I personally don't think it's necessarily going to be open to anything that kind of involved.
I agree with you. Maybe it's not, but what's the alternative? How do we make sure
I'm
that there's?
saying that we need to ensure it's your engineering, coordinating that with approval with their engineer.
Yeah, I'm 100% concerned about drainage. That was what I brought up originally. Because of the very reason. This agreement, from what I recall, stated that the developer would ensure that that the neighboring property, any drainage that's impeded by the neighboring property would not be a problem. That this development, from what I understand, would take care of draining any water so it doesn't get trapped on the neighbor's property, right? And if that doesn't happen, then the developer becomes responsible. If the neighbor comes forward, I feel like an attorney, I'm not, but I'm not an attorney. But
Now, considering you've worked with this engineer in the past, correct? Because we talked about this before, that the engineer who's designing the drainage situation for this property, is that correct?
So there is no neighbor to the east, correct?
there is.
Yeah, there is.
It's the
There
same.
is.
Because
It's
according to
actually the
this,
same
that
property
house is coming down. Some portion of it is, right? It doesn't zoom, I don't know why.
No, there's actually a brand new house that's not shown here, right on the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it literally was just built not long ago, but it is the same family that owns the house that's selling this parcel. So they would understand.
So they're
Kind of doing it for themselves a little bit, but we definitely don't want them to create, to have a flooding problem on their property where they can't get proper drainage. So this developer is indicating that they would install off-site drainage improvements on that property to drain off that property.
That seems reasonable.
And if that doesn't work, or if there's a problem, then that neighbor could come to, I guess, the city or the developer and say, hey, what's going on? And we could say we held the developer to this agreement that states that he would take care of that. And then it kind of becomes between the two of them to make sure it gets worked out. Is that right?
Yeah,
Paul?
we can't delegate our planning commission authority or council authority to a neighbor and say, you can stop development if you don't agree with this. That's just, that can't happen. But as far as we can keep them notified, we won't have responsibility as a city for approving these things, because ultimately the property owners are just asking for permission. The concept of we're going to have drainage, we're going to have a tie-in so that the property owner, if they want to have a drainage system that ties into the system, they can do that too. I think we're doing as much as we can as a city. But as far as like letting the neighbor have some sort of ability to stop development, that's just not something that we can do.
I guess I'm not trying to go there with it. I'm trying to make sure that the neighbor is aware and that they're, because here's the question, Paul, and help me out here, but if this gets flooded and you just don't know right up front because it's a seasonal thing. Let's say this year we have another drought year and nothing happens. And then we have a 1983 year and the neighbor gets flooded out and they bring in an attorney and say, well, it's because of these homes drained into your house. They didn't do the proper drainage. Are we liable? And if we're not, then who is? Because this developer could be long gone. They've sold all their lots. They have no tie here. Maybe they even, who knows? They can't be contacted.
Likely the developer would be gone. And if, depending on the amount of time that's passed, there'd be a statute of limitations or repose that would stop them from being sued as the developer.
So does that mean you sue the new homeowner?
It'd be the property owners, yeah, the ones who diverted their water onto your land. They'd be the ones who'd be liable.
So they're taking on that responsibility. So we just need to make sure they're aware that they have a responsibility that.
I think it's going to be on the plats, the drainage systems and everything. So I would think that's something they'd be aware of. Ultimately, we'd have immunity technically because we're not putting in the system. We're just saying you can use your land in a way that you're asking to.
So the city would never be a threat for approving.
The city was actually in this situation with Trailside Homes. We went down and looked at what the problem was, but we determined that they needed to contact the developer and the developer was still existing. So the city has no liability.
That's good to know because that happened a little before my time.
Okay.
Yeah, I've said my piece. I still feel comfortable. I mean, I had some concerns with Robert. I was on the fence in the beginning, and as you've worked through the process, at least on paper, we presented a solution that seems to address those concerns. And so I'm ready to move forward.
Do you feel comfortable enough to make a motion?
Sure.
I was gonna say, typically, a development would only take care of drainage on their property. The difference here is they were willing to go beyond the property, outside the property boundary to also install improvements to help drainage. Obviously, we haven't got to the point of plans yet or anything, but we'll look at it when something like that comes to be sure that it actually works. But the fact that he's committing to install drainage
And it's in the
makes
document.
me feel better that they're not just leaving people out to fend for themselves.
Yep. So yeah, I have no issue with that. I just don't know what what am I approving of?
Just that ordinance.
Just the ordinance. Okay, since we reconsider, we can go right back to the ordinance. So I move that we approve ordinance 2021-19.
All right, got a second? Second by Lisa. Any further discussion?
Well, I just want to say you've resolved a lot of my concerns and I appreciate that. But I still believe that development should happen when you can solve these problems, not while you're still going to have lingering ones that have to be solved later.
And I'll say that they are.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that was 4-1, Cassie. All right, let's talk about the weight scale, Steve.
So this is a discussion on a correction on our benchmarking that we did back in the fiscal year 2022 budget that started in July. We had one position, department maintenance worker 1, where we inadvertently included the part-time wages as a benchmark instead of full-time. And when we did that, they actually fell below the 5%, so they weren't originally included in the benchmark analysis. So this proposal is just to reevaluate it as with the full-time data and consider to move that range up closer to the market. It did come back at a 7%, which is above the 5% requirement. And if we were to do that, we'd go up to 80%, which is what was approved in the budget this year. So overall, that wage would go up about $1, roughly $1 from where it is currently. That's the only change to this wage scale.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to lead us out here?
I think it was a mistake and we're remedying the mistake, and that doesn't seem prohibitive. So I know that we've struggled to get park maintenance workers and we've struggled to get workers in general. So I know in our own business as well, we're trying to compensate at a much higher level than we ever have in the past just to get employees. So I think this is necessary.
Any other discussion, council?
I would just go along with that, it'll probably continue to get worse next year because we're currently at 2.6% unemployment. And so those entry level jobs are definitely the hardest to fill.
Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we move proposed resolution R 2141 wage scale adjustment for the park maintenance worker and propose that we accept this.
All right, we have a second. Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, that was unanimous. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn from the business meeting and reconvene in a work session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Kathy's, that was unanimous. Now calling the work session to order, and we'll begin with public comment. If there's anyone who still has something they'd like to say, we invite you to come forward. If you stand at the head of the table down there so we can hear you. State your name and place of residence. Hearing and seeing none, I'll
Oh, wait,
close.
Mayor. Oh, never mind, she was just leaving. I thought she was standing up my talk. Okay.
Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. No, we have a redevelopment proposal.
I feel like we should have a little cup that says "Save the clock tower." Nice.
Hey, before we start in the work session, if you go down to item 5 under planning items, that annexation petition has been struck from the agenda.
Do we have an explanation for? 'Cause
They
I know a
asked-
lot of people were.
They asked for more time to prepare.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, and just so you're aware too, they have not formally submitted an annexation petition. So this was just them requesting to come and introduce their concept for the development to the
Okay.
council before they formally submit a petition. So it will be back in front of you for official action if and when they do submit.
Okay.
So item 5 under planning is officially stricken from the agenda. And I should have mentioned that at the beginning.
The applicant just barely requested it
An hour,
today,
yeah.
yeah, so.
A couple hours ago.
I had prepared all of that analysis and stuff that was in the packet, but.
Okay, let's talk RDA.
Okay, clock tower, talked a lot about this. There's technically 4 clocks on this tower. The owner, Nadim Bakazi, is requesting RDA's assistance in repairing the clock tower. He's also requesting not only with the clock, but also the stucco and the flashing and stuff like that. So I've included the bids that he provided to me. This is a work session. If you guys are in favor, we can forward it to approve an agreement to pay this or some of this. I don't see him on the meeting anywhere. You guys see, I told him about the meeting.
Well, do we, so my first thought was just kind of, I mean, I have no idea about the bid, you know, whether it's valid or not, based on not having something to compare it to. Have we looked into that at all? Or have
we
they
only
submitted?
received one,
The stucco seems a little high.
I don't even know personally.
but I
You know,
have
whether
no
it's higher
idea,
level,
because
but
construction costs can be different.
I agree, but at the same time,
The clock
I just didn't know
itself
if we
is
had-
These are the
I think
only
the
bids
clock is
that he
actually
provided, but like
4,000,
standard
almost
city
4,000.
practice would be
Fix
to
that clock. I
get
say let's
multiple bids.
get rid of it.
That's $1,000 a face.
well, I'll tell you about that in a second.
So my thoughts are, you know, first and foremost.
Did you want to go through it?
Makes sense.
And then,
I'd be happy to tell you.
or do you guys want to just discuss? I guess we've all looked at it.
We have.
So why don't we start with Seth, because
Okay.
and
Well, I
let's
have-
go around the table.
Well, that was my thought.
Okay.
But I would like to hear, you know, a breakdown of that first. Sorry, I jumped the gun there.
It's okay. Stucco is 12,000 and the clock is 37. The clock, there's actually basically one person in the state that does these clocks. And that would include updating the controllers and the daylight savings, and it would make it so in the future the probability of this thing being able to be maintained correctly and keeping on the same time,
And
is
that's
highly probable with this guy. He's out of Kaysville.
that's the expense, is now there is one master controller that is GPS timed, and it's going to synchronize all 4 faces to the same time and auto update to the correct time regardless of daylight savings. This will be the most accurate sign in our community.
And
Okay, so-
not a soul looks at it to actually tell time. We have a clock on our car and
Yeah.
a clock on our wrist.
Can we
and
step
a
back
clock
from
on
this
our
for a minute
phone.
and say, maybe there's a better use of this tower than a clock?
That's just.
Because
what I was
nobody, yeah.
thinking.
And so
I'll go there in a
if we're
second.
going to put any money into this, I'd rather we make it a more usable tower and maybe look at some kind of digital signage. If we're gonna put the city's money into it, maybe the city could get a sign that is useful to the city.
Okay, let me just pull you. Do you all agree with that? Away with
I
the
don't.
clock?
I don't.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not.
Well,
Nobody
I don't
looks
think
at
we're
it.
ready for
What
it
are
yet,
you
but
gonna look
I do think that in looking, it's kind of like when you say, well, let's fix this instead of looking at it with new eyes. And I think that we've tethered ourselves to what the original design was here, even color wise and stucco. I mean, it looks like we have issues with stucco and we have issues with flashing and we have issues with, I mean, it's, look at these pictures here and we have a lot of issues going on, and that's thousands of dollars for something that maybe we give it a facelift completely, get rid
Start
of the
over.
$4,000 in clock parts.
But
See
then-
if there's something else to be done with that, and
But-
maybe we save a few $1,000s.
There's a few scenarios that we
Yeah,
can
which
really.
Probably.
we want to look at. though.
But we talked about like redoing a marquee over by the museum because that one like became obsolete and we decided
Nothing
not to
ever
repair it.
happened.
Well, yeah, we decided not to do anything because it was antiquated. We didn't really feel like that was the right location. But this is a very useful location for city information. So
We've
maybe
also
if,
talked about
But this little
branding
portico on top
ourselves,
is
and this
tiny.
is an opportunity to brand.
This
Yeah.
little cupola, actually, it's a cupola up on top. That's tiny. You can't like
I
put
thought it was a
anything up there.
cupola. Am I saying that wrong?
it's cupola, it actually is.
Something new today.
But you know what? Tomato, tomato,
I've done that.
tomato, tomato, I guess,
So if you look at this in context of what you normally see in a commercial subdivision, I wasn't here when this was built, but this is kind of one of these extra things that the city negotiated, and
Like a silo or a.
sometimes
A
these
landmark.
things that are, I guess, on top of additional to what you'd normally see, it's really common for the city to kind of partner with. Obviously, it's become a maintenance nightmare for this landowner.
Yeah.
I think there's multiple scenarios that we could explore. I
And I
wish he
think
was
they-
here that we could kind of interactively talk with him, but we could propose scenarios based off of your preferences. I think the guy would probably just give the whole thing to us, to be honest, like.
But we don't
It's just
necessarily want
but
ownership.
I think
that's
we
a
do.
decision that we
I
have to
kind of
decide.
do, because if we're gonna take it over,
The ownership, though, I mean, then that means coordinating with all of these businesses for their signs as well.
Well,
So that, I
Ah.
don't know if we necessarily
It has
want
cost
that, because then that means they may not want to change their sign. Because that, you know what I mean, could be just more of an expense.
but do we owe them
Although-
a sign?
They might be paying
But
a
I'm
real
sure that-
estate value.
And if
to
they
that.
do, then maybe it becomes a moneymaker for the city.
But the RDA thing, I think it is an appropriate use of funds
I
to
agree.
encourage and incentivize people to go there because it's maintained well.
Plus it's town square.
Yeah, we have a very practical scenario in
my
front of us
thing.
where
Yes,
he's
it-
gonna do
it
all the
needs
work
to
for
look
us.
it needs to.
We're gonna foot the bill, but he's hiring the guy. It'll be fixed. It'll look nice. But if we want to explore other scenarios, we can certainly talk about that. But the one before us is probably the one with the quickest results, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah, so for me, I know do we want to go around the table and get everyone's opinion?
That's what I asked for.
So I guess Seth went, Corinne,
Everybody went at the same time.
I know, let's do this a little more organized.
Let me start it, Seth. Are you for a facelift or something new?
Well, so when we started talking about other ideas, I mean, it kind of got the wheels turning a little bit, but you know, as we start to venture into marquees and stuff like that, I mean, I don't know that I like the idea of a busy marquee right in the busiest intersection in town with information moving and going, and it turns into that highway commercial more to me than I would want. I also like the idea that it's the clock tower, not the Walmart tower or the sign tower, you know? So yeah, I like the facelift idea personally, but.
Okay,
you know.
Corinne?
I think the clock thing is it's worth it to get that thing fixed.
Okay.
Let's fix it.
Lisa?
I'd like to see a facelift on it and seriously consider whether we want that to remain a clock, especially for the expense of that and the continued maintenance, and that there's one person with the ability to control this, and that always worries me. But I would just like to, rather than have it fixed with giving money to it right now, I'd like to put the RDA funds toward a really solid design and color scheme, because we've talked about how eclectic our town square is and that we don't have a specific architectural look. And we've talked about branding many times. This is an opportunity to me to brand.
Okay.
How do we coordinate it? Well, future
Jordan?
discussion.
So I think you're all saying the same things I'm going to, is I like the clocks. I think Clock Tower has a small town charm that I love. So I too would support the clock tower. As for the rest of the building, I really would like to take this over, at least see what happens and turn it into, you know, every city needs a monument. And we're working on signage right now where we've got a contract with someone helping us brand the city. And one of the things they pointed out in that meeting was you can have 1,000 little monuments.
Yes.
Or medium size, or you can do one that kind of is a little bit bigger. And I think this is an opportunity we have right here, because this is something that everyone, you know, you're in Syracuse when you get to kind of this area, the town center. And this is a great way. I would love to see some informational signs underneath this tower. The history of Syracuse. By the way, the museum's across the street. And things like that. And as part of this, I think the clock tower is great. I would like to see some more signage as far as Syracuse signage. We have our little, what do you call it?
Yeah, the little Syracuse
Logo on there, which I
yeah.
think is great, but I think we could do a little bit better if we kind of put some time into this. So I think in immediacy, I think we should do the clock because it just annoys me.
But that's thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
to
that could be
get it out of
used.
the way.
But I don't want to get it out of the way, so I'd rather fix it.
I'd rather hold up, because what if we decide to change the design?
Okay, that's a fair argument.
And that'd be the only way, if the overall thing is worth not doing, but if we're just going to repaint and, you know, I'd be like, fix that clock.
I would like to kind of say, as our signage, our contractors are out there, say, hey, what can you do with this? And I would love to get some of that opinion from them and just see if we can't turn this into something. I love it as is. I think it's got that charm to it that actually kind of drew me to Syracuse. If we can improve on this a little bit, I think it's money well spent, especially where it's not taxpayer money. It's
RDA.
Kind of is, but it's the RDA money that's specifically meant to increase the branding and the business presence of the city.
And it's money generated by the business.
Yes, it'll support the businesses that are there, and it's from them.
Yes.
Here's what I'm hearing you say, and I'm wondering if you could agree with this. Could we form a task force with you, Lisa, and with you, Jordan? You don't like the clock. You like the clock. Put you together, put your heads together with Noah and with staff, and come back with some kind of a design or some kind of a proposal back to the council.
Can I
leg
do
wrestle
I get a turn?
Yes, you get a turn.
Okay, so
Get in my class with leg
I think that, I mean, obviously, I think that there's an opportunity here that we should at least consider what the options are before we are quick to act. But one thing that has been a recurring challenge in our city, think of how many times people have been frustrated with the marquee that doesn't update at the movie theater. And the reason is because only one person could fix it, and it took one key that can't be found.
You're right.
And the,
One,
so,
one angry employee.
right, so my point is, if we jump into this and make it so that only one person can fix the clock and only one person, is the go-to resource, what happens if that person moves out of state? Are we stuck again with a broken something that can't be dealt with?
I think once you're to a controller like that, I think I would like to see the technology, but I don't think the problem they did is they bought that sign out of it was secondhand out of a.
Okay, well, my point is,
I'm just saying that I think that we're talking tomatoes and tomatoes.
I'm just saying.
But you brought up that specific.
We're narrowing us to one source, and that was the point. It's not that sign, it's that we're going to say we're one source to fix this. And what happens if that one source goes away or that one source isn't successful?
We should put a digital clock.
So to me, the right thing to do is just conceive of what could be there and then talk about which direction we're going to go.
And that's what I'm suggesting is we put no clock and clock together and let them bang heads together.
One of the prominent features of this clock tower are these big windows, and there's nothing in there, so it's not serving any purpose.
I've always thought we should put projectors in the windows, especially around Halloween.
Some fluorescent lights.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, the point being
There is some
that
lights in
that's real estate on a very big fixture that could be used for something else. If we were going to really redesign or rethink the space, and maybe the clock goes there because it's more prominent, or maybe the clock, we just put some, venting up there where this clock actually is, or maybe, I don't know, there's lots of options, but my point is let's explore them. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I think this is some good conversation, good feedback. I'll return and report to the landowner.
So it sounds like yay for the RDA funds though.
No, not until.
That's not what I heard.
Well,
I heard we're willing to spend RDA funds, but not necessarily on the proposal.
Yes, we're willing to, but just where to spend them.
Someday.
Not specifically for this.
And I'd like to know if he would just give it up, because I think he doesn't like it. And
I agree with Dave. I think we ought to ask.
Yeah, I think we asked
if
that
we can
first.
take it over, then maybe that changes everything.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we return on another time and I can get more information from the landowner,
So like
because he may not want us to have all these fancy ideas on his private property. So we'll have to decide.
Well, what's that?
In the meantime, the topic says RDA participation, so yay.
Wait
Let's
for
do
this
something,
RDA.
but maybe not this.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Discussion regarding recommending Weber Basin Conservancy District regarding our ordinance. And is this Paul? You're gonna take this one?
Okay. This one may not be as fun. But it'll still be fun.
I'm looking forward to this.
There's a couple of issues that came forward, right, regarding landscaping. One was just general maintenance of commercial properties and landscaping. And that primarily applied to the property maintenance code. This discussion is primarily the other issue, and that is regarding water conservation and in particular possible qualification for an incentive program that Weber Basin operates. And in order to qualify, a city has to have a certain ordinance in place that is water wise.
Right.
Now, I will say in discussions with representatives of Weber Basin, there isn't like a specific bar that we've seen. They have submitted a model ordinance that they said, hey, this is what we want us, this is what we'd like to see. It was very involved and a little technical, and we didn't think it'd be easily enforced. And what we thought maybe would be a better approach is to get at the heart of some of the primary ways that we can conserve water through our requirements on development, things like that. And that's what we've put together just in terms of general ideas tonight. So in the packet, you have what our current ordinance has, and you have kind of what we're thinking on what the changes could be.
Right.
Are there any of those that you want to talk about? And if, once we get through those, if there are, there's actually a couple of additional ones that they submitted. Because I sent this to Weaver Basin last week, and they said they have some comments for us.
Okay.
So
we don't have the comments here, though.
we don't, I just got it today.
I'd love to go if no one else wants to.
I'm not sure who's starting off on this one.
I'm Chatterson.
It says
Dave.
name.
Dave.
Yeah.
Go, Dave.
I'm gonna defer to Jordan because he really wants to start.
Yes.
And I do not want to deprive him of that chance.
I appreciate that.
You're
So
welcome.
first of all,
So Jordan, you get to ride the pony first.
let's do this.
Don't break the pony.
Oh, is that a fat joke?
Really?
Just saying. So looking at this actually I think is great. What I wasn't really clear on is it looks like by and large we have most of this already.
Right.
The property maintenance code, weeds and grass, except ornamental grass as part of an overall landscaping plan, can be over 12 inches. Noxious weeds are not allowed to flourish. I think I can point out several items where we need to enforce that better. Plantings can't negatively affect the public right of way. And dead or diseased trees, constable public hazard prohibited. So I think what we have in there is good. So is it really just coming down to intent language? Because I read the intent language. I thought that right there, if we could get that codified, I'm good.
How can we, well, sorry, if we're speaking out of turn, are we speaking in terms?
So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Corinne.
Okay, number 3.
I'll cede
on
the
that
floor.
one, This required drip irrigation on landscaping, you know, how do you require that? People don't apply to put in sprinklers. They put in what they want and what they're used to and what they maintain, what they could, you know. What
I
they
could
do.
probably
So
talk to that.
On residential, there would be no real way to know.
Right.
Unless we kind of happened upon
And
it.
then it could be easily changed as well, which you have to sometimes because the technology changes.
This would primarily come into play when like commercial
Landscapers.
development and
Okay.
and HOA
So
properties.
this
are
is
being-
more for, we need to specify that this is not necessarily for your average resident. This is more.
Well, this would be
business
throughout
It-
everywhere.
It can apply to
Residential.
residential property, but there's really
So if
no
someone's
way-
hiring a landscaper, they would have to meet this code.
Yeah.
But there's no inspection.
They would have to know that.
Exactly. There's
They would
no
have to
way
know that there's
enforce.
no inspection and likely it would go on without us even knowing.
Exactly.
But where we would find out
So how can you
is,
require it?
is one of the items on here, it says you can't have just rock. You have to have decorative plantings and things like that amongst that. So if you are not watering the plants in there, then those will die and you will therefore be out of
Well, this is just saying in drip
out of
irrigation.
compliance.
On number 3, it's saying landscape areas that do not consist of turf grass are required to have drip irrigation. Well, I've got some pretty large flower beds, but they've got trees and bushes and other things, and there's no grass in it. So I'd have to have drip irrigation according to this.
It would be, so maybe we put the drip as a
Do you see what I mean?
recommendation. Yes.
Well, I like how
But
we've
it
got
provides
in the intent,
guidelines.
the city encourages water-wise
Yes.
landscaping. And I like that because we know that some areas are really, it's valuable to have grass and shade and all those things, but others, there are a lot of people who just don't know that there's the option or that we're encouraging that. So I like that use of.
But we do require that, I liked where it says right here, it says we do not require turf grass in landscape. We do require live plant material to be installed and maintained as an important component of each project for beautification, dust suppression, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So if, for example, they just didn't put anything in, then they would automatically be out of compliance because all of their plants would die and they'd be just rock. But if they're spraying, we would have to say that you can't water your rocks as if you're watering a yard. And I think that would have to be.
We can enforce that.
We can enforce that.
Well, that part possibly could, but I'm still saying if it's a private residence, they're not going to be applying for a permit. So this is really hard to enforce.
I'm just saying, if they're watering rocks, they would get a fine.
Wow. Because, you know, sometimes you have rock paths so that you can have the grass kind of grow in between and stuff. I'm just saying that you have to be very careful in how you word this.
I agree, but we do, I mean, I
You know,
think,
like,
I think we
like
need
pea
to,
gravel and all of those kinds of areas. Where are you saying we can't have water, and how much of a fine, and how, do you know what I mean? There's-
absolutely, and I think those are all valid questions. But the point is, we do need to figure out a way to make sure that xeriscaping and these types of things are accomplishing the purpose they're meant to accomplish, and that is reduce water consumption. If people just tear out the grass, put down rocks, and then water it exactly the same, then we've accomplished nothing.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that this has to be then tailored to meet exactly just like those places that are intended on
You're right.
xeriscaping or something. Because as it reads for anybody putting in anything, these are gonna apply.
I thought.
Does that make
they-
sense? Like, if you're not gonna
Like
put
which
any
one?
xeriscaping in, I mean, most of these are like limits on turf grass. Well, that one's commercial and industrial, that's
Mhm.
enforceable. But like the required drip irrigation, prohibit mixed irrigation zones.
So
But-
if they put in a xeriscaped area, that would scratch that itch.
I
Or
feel
xeriscape or low water
I feel like
usage
we've
area.
Kind of gotten lost from the
But that's
intent
what it
here.
says already. It says.
That's- I'm just saying-
Grass, I think we're one and the same.
I thought the point of this discussion was to see if we could improve what our requirements were for
Right.
landscaping, rather than start something we have to enforce.
Right.
It should be something where we used to say you have to put grass in everywhere, and now we're saying you don't have to put grass in, you can do xeriscape. So I think that we might be getting really
Thank you.
heavy-handed, and we might be creating a bunch of enforceable issues instead of just saying, hey, well, give me more options here so that you can save water if you want to.
And I agree with that, but what I don't want to happen is everyone flips the strip and then changes nothing. Because then we've accomplished nothing.
What do you mean? If
As
they're
far
not
as not
watering
meeting
the
the-
strip?
They
It
still
rips it.
water it the same as what he's.
Yeah,
suggesting,
if we flip the
they
strip
put
and they water it,
different
and they
plants,
put
they
plants
still
in there and
use
water it with their existing sprinkler
blisters,
heads,
Then they've
It
got to
defeats
change.
the
Well,
you've
that's
completely
part of-
defeated the purpose of all of this.
Okay, then
That's
we just-
something that we
that's pretty
sign
easy to
when
say
we
Yeah, I
apply
agree.
for this.
I'm
for
okay
the
with
strip, we're
updating
saying we
verbiage
won't
to-
water the same way we used to. I just filled that out myself and signed my name, so if I'm gonna sit there and water some dirt, then I'm in trouble. So that's already something we're
Mhm.
culpable for personally, because I signed my name on that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that needs to be.
But you signed it
codified
because you
here.
signed up for the city's flip
Yeah.
the strip, but if they do it independently, we need to say, those same guidelines apply to anyone doing this. You need to change your habits or we've accomplished nothing.
Well, except for the fact then that if somebody then is trying to xeriscape, and then you end up kind of penalizing people who are trying to xeriscape.
I'm not saying how heavy-handed we have to be with this. I'm just saying we need to put it in here that you should do this. And if you, we just can't afford to waste water anymore.
Oh, I'm okay with that, but I'm just saying we just need.
I
this needs
I
to be
feel
more
like that's
specific.
Do you lose the
already,
ability when you take away the requirement? like
understood,
wage
don't
and
you?
like
I
feel like
hope so.
The
It
vast
has to be a-
majority, and that's what that's really what
I
we
mean,
deal
to
with on
meet
a city
the
level, is
ability
trying to
to
get the masses to
qualify for the
understand it.
meter basis.
And I think anybody that's willing to put in xeriscape
We
instead
don't
of
know yet.
putting grassy down
Because I feel
is
like
going
you
to
can
understand
accomplish-
that they're trying to
since we
save
can't
water.
enforce it,
So
we can
Okay.
accomplish
I
the same
just-
thing.
I think that we.
So
need to be
don't put a
careful not to
penalty
be
on it
too
yet.
authoritative,
I'm
you know?
okay. So I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So if our approach at this point is to simply go through and say,
More
yes,
options.
here's our intent. We strongly encourage you to
Give up your grass.
change your sprinklers in this area to only water the plants that need watering. If you want to say, that's fine. And we don't need to penalize people. I'm good with that. We don't need to.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
I'll agree with
goals
you.
of
we
this
doing
discussion though
anything
is to get us towards the Weaver Basin, the ability to actually receive the rebate or the cash.
Well,
towards it.
so that's one of
And
the
I think we lose
reasons.
that.
But I think the big reason here is because we need to change habits ourselves.
Yeah,
And
requirements.
it's great that we have an incentive to do so.
Right, and
So
I'd
let's
rather an
change
incentive than a
requirements.
penalty.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there any of these 6 items in here a no-go? Like, we do not
So-
want this.
Okay, so I just want to say number 4, I don't understand, because, to say that we prohibit mixed zones,
Yeah,
How are you gonna enforce that? What are you?
how do you determine a zone? Are you saying?
it's a sprinkler zone.
Because if
sprinkler
it's
zone.
okay, because if it's a sprinkler zone, you could have a drip on the same as something else as long as they're not crossing paths. On the other hand, that's the real issue, is if you're watering it two different ways, because now you're wasting water.
There is a way, there are ways to engineer it.
Yeah.
But most of the time people just,
The easy way out is to have them on separate zones. I get that.
well, no, most people, when
Just
they,
leave it
when they have a
Plug it in.
one zone and they want to switch half of it to drip,
Yeah,
they just hook up a converter kit.
Yeah.
And it's still half.
half and half.
Is that a
And-
problem?
and So what happens is your timing, right?
Yeah, because
The
you're
purpose of it-
longer than you.
the
Because
purpose
drip
of
system,
it
you water
is-
for an hour and waste very little water, but
Yeah.
if you turn every, okay, I see.
Yeah, and you're watering at this, you're either wasting water or
My
not
point
watering
is,
enough.
I get this, but I just fundamentally, I have an issue whenever we write a rule that we cannot or will not enforce.
So
Because when
strongly
you-
discouraged would be better.
So, well, my point is, when you write one like
I think
that,
it's good.
then somebody says, well, I know this is in violation, what are you gonna do? We have nothing we can do. So
Yeah.
why make it a code?
If we prohibit it, we can do something about it, but
But
Do you
it
intend
sounds
to?
like we don't want to be heavy-handed with
But
this.
that's
I'm-
up to-
I'm
But
okay
if
with
you
that.
have no
council.
intention of following up on that,
if you pass a law that prohibits it, we can, yes. But if
If they're
you,
gonna
There's a few of
participate
these
in
I
the
fully agree
program,
with.
okay,
There's a
Then
few
they
of
have
these
to
like
abide.
1,
Yeah.
5, 6, I have no issues with
yeah,
I agree.
prohibiting.
so possibly, I'm hearing possibly at least 4, there's a problem with 4.
just make it
and three is
clear and
required.
enforceable is what
It
I'm
says
saying.
required drip irrigation.
I'm not objecting to it, I just think that it's too vague to be enforced. Because
So-
you're requiring somebody to go and
I have no
witness
problem with 2.
what's on at the same time and then determine that it's a zone.
And three,
So why don't we change 3 and
Two
4
zones
to
on the same
encourage,
time, or on
just
the
as
same time.
guidelines?
If
They're
we can-
manual.
if we
You have to
can
work with
specify
those.
on 3 that we're talking about a mixed xeriscape rather than just landscaped areas, because see, when I read it, I'm like, well, what if they don't have anything that's xeriscape? You know what I mean? When it says landscaped areas.
Yeah, so it
rather
means
than-
manicured areas, right? Or areas that
Well,
have
it's-
some sort of upkeep.
But what they're talking about is a mix
Mhm.
Are
here.
you talking number 3 or number
Yes,
4?
number 3 with the, if you're talking about a rock with some plantings in there, then in 3 makes sense. But if you're talking about just landscaped areas,
So landscaped areas that don't have grass.
right?
But
would be
do
required.
have plantings.
Yeah.
I think her point is that you're just not gonna water rocks if there's just
Sure.
rocks.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
but
And
There
then
has to be
reads, it kinda
plantings.
makes
And
sense.
how it says, it's just, it could all be plants.
Yeah.
So landscape areas that do not consist of turf grass, but do
That's
consist
what,
of
Plantings.
thank
plantings.
you. You finally
I don't know that
understand.
anybody's
Guys, do you want me to share this over? so you can
No,
see
no,
that?
I got it
Gonna
right
find
here.
some answer. You are
Thank you.
now required to.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute.
Come on.
So I'm okay if we want to change like 3 and 4, say, instead of required drip irrigation and landscaping, strongly encourage. For 4, prohibit mixed irrigation zones, strongly
Yes.
discourage.
Now, I'm okay if they're going to do a mix of the rock in there, rather than just landscaped areas, if it's that
If
you
it
can require
includes
that.
plantings.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm.
That's fine.
We can still require it, I think is what she's saying.
Do we
if
have a
go back
majority
to-
on that thought that we just strongly encourage, don't require it? Because that's the line
Yeah.
between enforcing it
I
and not.
think requiring is fine if you change the verbiage to say.
But to Dave's point, are we willing
xeriscaped
to,
with plantings.
are we willing to enforce?
Xeriscaped with plantings makes a lot more sense than
No,
just
sure.
landscape. But it's
Well, I
just,
think
it's in order to participate in the program.
Yeah, I think
No,
that
this
we
is
can
a-
Right?
enforce it.
No,
this is our
Watering
ordinance.
rocks.
Oh,
Yeah, we can enforce that, that's not.
This is a, yeah, so this is our ordinance to allow us
So
to
we
qualify
can
for the
say that-
program.
So we can say that
Make
if
it
it
easy,
has the
If you're
rock.
watering
watering
rocks.
non-vegetated areas,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
makes it more
Yep.
definitive.
Thank you. That would
Yeah, I'm okay with
Can you
that.
Say that again, Dave.
I said if you prohibit watering non-vegetated areas, that's clear cut. And that doesn't, then we're not worried
That
about
would
all
even
these,
con- that
And
would
that's
even-
easily
that wipes out
enforceable.
like half of this big discussion you
And-
just had.
And it would include watering streets,
Yep.
driveways and sidewalks.
I like that. That's a good
Yeah.
recommendation, Dave. Can we add that in as number 7?
Sure.
Or maybe
just
we're, maybe
replaces
we're
about-
rewickering.
But actually, you do have to say some of these things out for people.
I think that's worth
Imagination is
being its
really
own
small
thing.
sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think it
Yeah, we
actually
can have-
covers
that's
some of
easy.
these. I think it
Yeah.
really needs to be a standalone.
So I think
Okay.
change 3 and 4 to encourage or strongly encourage, and on 4, discourage, and then 7 it is prohibited. That's where we get into prohibited
Yeah.
to water non-vegetative. Is that a word?
Areas.
Vegetative areas?
Non-vegetated.
What? Vegetated.
Whatever.
Anything. long-
Non-biological.
You know what? All words are made up, okay?
Yes, if it's dead, then you can't water it anymore.
Sort
Don't let it
If
die.
it's
So
cannot
far,
grow, if
we've
that
made
rock
some
grows,
progress.
you're not watering.
2, 3, 4 thing. It needs
Get
to
a
be less
word.
harsh.
Okay, so everybody's on
Okay.
board with that. 3 and 4 is
Tone down,
a recommendation, not a requirement.
but
But you can't
And maybe
water the
something will be-
non-vegetated areas. Okay,
And
5 and 6.
No issues there for me.
I like 5 and
That's
6.
fine.
Okay,
That's
so
a big one we're getting from our
Vegetative,
citizens too.
So let me-
is the HOA.
let me
Change
add
that.
on a
Just thought I'd
couple that
make
I got
sure.
today.
Yes.
On commercial and industrial, the suggestion was no turf is allowed in park strips or in areas with less than 8 feet in width or slopes greater than 25%. That's for commercial and industrial.
I actually think that's good.
I like that,
Would you be on
actually.
board with that?
Yeah, because watering a
Yeah.
hill is a complete waste of water.
And anything less than 8 feet, you're oversprayed.
The only thing
You
is-
always have.
No,
overspray.
no grass in
What
park
about-
strips.
Okay, well, the only question on that is like we have some retention ponds that are grass.
They would be greater than 8 feet.
And well, and then but they're also sloped. Is that?
That wouldn't count because it would
Either
be
commercial
over the distance.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, they talked about it on a hill, like, for instance, we allowed Lindquist
So
to
you
grass
need to
that area
remove
and took out those
retention
really
areas.
hot, terrible rocks that were there.
But how much of it is
The-
more
the
than 25% grade?
radiant heat
Just the
So
rim?
there's ways to do the slope out of rock. And then
Okay,
the bottom is
But I'm
grass
saying, like, with
still too.
Lindquist, they had
Yeah,
that slope.
that's
Would
true.
that be too much of a
There's
slope?
parts of it that probably would be.
See, so that's what I'm saying. We have to kind of be careful on that.
If we want to exempt basins, we probably could.
Okay, that would
That's a good
work.
idea.
probably a good idea.
Accepted basin.
Detention basins there.
Because they
Well, we
need to
sure
have the
appreciated
slope.
those basins.
They
a few
have to
weeks
have
ago.
Well,
And they
I
have
think
to
we're
have-
better off to have
And they have to have a planting
anything that
to
has a
maintain
root
it.
system to keep the hill in place
Right.
as opposed to rock right there.
And several of these basins also double as play areas because nobody wants to roll down a rock hill. Just saying.
Really?
Just saying.
So parking strip, no grass allowed. Are you
grass.
okay with that for commercial?
I'm
industrial?
fine.
For commercial, absolutely.
Okay. Number 6, they suggested that if we're going to recognize recreational areas, they'd like to see the maximum turf area to be 15% outside of the recreation areas. So
Outside of. the-
yeah, so this is applying only to HOA, multifamily, PRDs.
So they can have a designated recreation area to
That's
play in,
grass.
that's like their park,
Mhm.
and then outside of that, only 15%.
Yeah, the maximum is 15.
Isn't
I don't
that,
know
isn't
what
that
that looks
covered in the 8-foot minimum?
Well, that was just commercial and industrial. This is getting into
Into HOAs?
HOAs and
But couldn't the
multifamily.
same rule apply?
But all they have to do is deem an area recreational and they don't care anymore.
And that's why I'm thinking the
Well-
same rule applies, because if it's not big enough, if it's not at least 8 feet, then it's really not big enough. It's just like a dog watering spot or something.
Dogs like grass.
I'm not saying they don't, but they can go on rocks just as well as they can go on grass.
Yeah.
So that's where I now that you bring that up, so when it comes into like multifamily, I tend to lean more towards, I like grass for multifamilies where possible, where it's not a mow strip. Again, most people aren't playing frisbee in the mow strip. But I'm willing to be a little more lenient around multifamily and those types of areas to allow for more grass for people to recreate, congregate, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be a field to still be a usable
No, but
area.
it has to be big enough to at least put a blanket down. I mean, if you don't, you know,
Yeah.
when we talked about some of these areas that in our park strips that are, 2 to 4 feet wide, they're really not big enough to even sit on, without
Most
hanging
park
feet
strips
over.
are 6 foot in the city,
Yeah.
which is kind of surprising. I actually laid down to see if that was true, and it's It is longer than me. It doesn't look like it's 10.
You know, once again, I'm concerned that we keep getting away from giving new options and now we're becoming punitive and restrictive rather than saying, these are your options, where we used to be very restrictive in requiring grass for everything. And now we're getting restrictive where we're requiring no grass. And I think that this is a mistake if we're going to start, if we're going to prescribe to everybody what kind of grass or no grass they're allowed to have. I think that's opposite of what our intention was. We wanted to give them more options and opportunities to go according to what their needs were, rather than saying you have to have grass because that's wasteful to when you're in a drought situation. But I don't like the idea at all of restricting how much grass they're allowed to have.
On a multifamily development?
Yeah, even I mean, I think that should be up to what their best use is.
So I think you bring up a really good point. And so let's take it back to the question, and rather than thinking about how we're being punitive, would be what options can we give them under what conditions?
Yeah.
Because I think that you're right. We're just trying to get away from water wasting. So rather than structure this as what you get penalized for, we can allow all these things if certain conditions are met. And those conditions would be that you're not watering your rocks. Yeah.
But I think we just have gotten into the figurative and literal weeds here as we're talking about this, because I think that we've just become authoritative about land use. And I think we have to be careful on that.
So are we saying, are we not okay with 6 as it's written?
Yes.
Correct.
We're not okay with 6 as it's written.
Well, wait, are you talking about, I thought you were talking
6
about.
says
the one
that
you were talking about.
there's only allowed to have 35%
35%.
grass. I don't think we should be prescribing that.
Yeah.
I think we should just make sure that those sprinklers are not in
Okay.
It's all about wasting water.
Right.
It is. Yeah.
But I do
And giving
think,
people new opportunities.
and I think
Right.
5 covers our primary issue
Right.
with some of these areas where
Yep.
we have people prohibiting
Yeah,
water wise, and this makes it
yeah,
Yes.
opens it up to them.
illegal to prohibit water wise landscaping.
Right.
Council, I'm
Okay.
going to limit discussion on this for 10 more minutes. And then we'll
I think we'll be pretty
Okay,
bad.
so I got
I
a
think
few
we're
more
there.
here.
Okay.
They recommended requirement of new landscape areas have to have a smart controller, essentially.
I agree with that.
How do
They're-
you enforce them?
You can make that
You
inspectable
probably that part of an inspection.
because, so
But then you have to apply, you have to pay a fee, and
I-
then you have to test.
I
it.
actually
And
think-
I'm just saying that
Ju-
adds up.
I think what we ought to do is require new construction to have smart controllers as well.
So you can make this only apply to, like we were just talking about, if there's like common, like HOA property when it gets installed.
Right.
And not personal property.
That would
Not
make more sense.
individual homes, although you could do that too.
I think
I think
we,
we have the recommended language for the personal
Recommended.
homes and then
yeah.
on commercial.
But what
we'll
about-
save it, but-
Are you guys okay in new construction requiring a smart controller?
I think recommended.
I mean, I personally would be okay with it, but I
Because-
get the concern around, mandating something that's not wholly all that enforceable.
Right.
Well,
And
it's
it would
more
take a-
expensive.
And it would
I
take
mean,
a lot of
actually it's
staff
not,
time
but-
to do
I mean,
it.
they're
And then,
to the point where they're.
Well, if they're in being, that's why I said
With
on
the
new
rebate.
construction, because they're inspecting it anyway. This is just one more
not
box they
necessarily,
check.
because they finished the house and then it's up to you to put it in your yard.
Yeah.
I
That's
think the
fair.
sprinkler piece comes
That's
so
a
much
good point.
later.
That's
that,
true. And
So
sometimes
you have
it's
to
a while
apply,
later.
what we're talking about
I think
is
just-
having an application for
For,
sprinklers.
to have your
I think we
sprinklers.
leave-
You're right.
And that's just too
That's
far.
not.
You're
that is-
absolutely right on
yeah.
that.
I
So
like the
I
recommended.
overstepped on that one,
Yeah.
but
Let's
I,
go with recommended.
What about on the commercial?
Commercial in nature would make sense.
Require.
Yeah, because commercial, before we even let them go into,
And then if
we
it's-
For
require
occupancy.
all the
Require,
landscaping to be done.
To be done for
And then if it's
occupancy, so we
raining or
could
windy,
inspect.
then the smart controller will respond.
Fruit Heights has a program right now. We're flipping the script. Fruit Heights has a program right now that will give you a smart controller if you read it to us. I'll swap yours out.
Very cool.
so right now there's a rebate that you can get 50% off a smart controller.
So you're okay with that requirement on commercial HOA multifamily?
Yes.
And industrial.
Recommend
And
for
industrial.
single family.
Yes,
But just recommend for single.
because then it can be built in as a.
Yeah, that's a good.
And is that just new construction? Can we make that retro after a certain time frame or? For existing
You
commercial?
could amortize it, but I would think you probably just stick with new construction and then.
Yeah.
If someone. carries it
Because
out,
we're back
never
to, we have to
pays
go
more,
inspect
then
businesses.
Most of them are gonna end up going to smart controller anyway, because technology's going that way.
Yeah.
It's just easier.
Easier to control. Yeah. Okay. Mulch has to be 3 inches deep. That can be in specs. And again, single family, you're not gonna know, it's not part of the.
And I don't want anyone out there with a ruler.
And
Because
and
blows away.
some people may not want it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't say you have to have mulch, it's if you do have mulch.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like,
I think put in as a recommendation, because it's one of those that I don't want to try and enforce it.
Okay, and then the last one was a question on single family. They're asking for a limit of 35%, a maximum 35% to be turf, lawn, grass.
wow.
35% of the lot size or of the,
Outside the house.
The
landscape
irrigated
area.
space. So take out the driveway, take out the house,
sidewalk, any
take
of
out the
I
swimming
don't, I don't
pool.
agree with that at all.
And then they said, even if it's just front and side yards.
Because what
And
if
then
you want
backyards can
to,
be grass, whatever.
yeah, what if you just, no.
I don't like that
Once
one.
again, I think you just encroached on the landowner's autonomy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want anybody to come and say, oh, take that out on your side, or, if you're installing something, that's a very personal decision, and I wouldn't ever want the government to be intruding and telling me that.
I don't want to do the calculations for everybody's yard.
No, Right, no.
35%.
And nobody should have to be calculating their own
And
yard.
again, you
I
end
don't
up having
think
to have
that
some sort of
should
an
happen.
application.
Nobody should be
make sure
measuring
it's
your
done
neighbor's
right.
yard. for
Yeah,
starters.
and
know.
it does. It
Kind of
brings
out
up-
of bounds.
It brings up your neighbors checking on you and saying you're 42%.
Do we want to push for most strips? So forget about any percentages, just say, do we want to require new construction most strips to be?
It's so expensive. I think we maybe, again, recommend at the most.
Recommend,
on that,
yeah.
'cause I agree. I think they're great, but holy cow, are they expensive.
We're checking and paving is $10,000 just to do pavers in our, that's a lot, more than grass. Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah, then you're mandating more costs.
You
It's
continue
already
water
too
so much better,
expensive
but
to
it's
build,
just.
buy a home.
And then also you have problems with up and down.
You got it? Okay.
Well, so you don't have to put concrete in your most.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying though that it's all construction material. It's just, right now it's.
Brody has what he needs. He'll come back to us with.
Thanks, Brody.
Another draft.
And good discussion. Thanks,
And
everybody.
This next one is mine, council. Do you want to talk at some point, not tonight, but do you want to talk someplace about encouraging citizens to employ or water conserving division of culinary water, like shower heads that
I
you want
just don't feel like we should be inside people's homes telling them what, I mean, I'm okay if we wrote articles that said these are good
I love
ideas
that.
and suggestions.
Right.
But I have a hard
This
time if we were to codify
Put-
anything
put this
inside
in our
your home.
magazine.
I mean, like,
Public
say for
education.
instance, if I
Yeah.
ever do like canning, guess what? That requires a lot of water. But yeah, I'm not gonna give it up. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so I mean, if, I thought your list
It's a great list.
looked like a good Facebook post or possibly an article in the magazine,
I'd like both of those.
but is that all you were looking for?
I just wanted to know whether you wanted to even talk about it.
No.
So, yes.
I'd
Yeah,
like
I think we
that.
should always talk about
I think
it.
it's great because it does bring it to the front of their minds and they go, oh, you know what? I read that. Maybe I will turn that off when I spit my toothpaste into the
Maybe
sink,
this would
but
be a
it
great-
shouldn't be anything more than that.
Yeah,
How about
I-
an article? How about
Yes.
an article midwinter about
Yeah,
culinary water?
sure.
Yeah,
And,
Okay.
or twice a
Question.
year, or,
Okay, all right. I'm gonna strike that one.
just to remind.
I don't
me,
think we need to strike it. I think
Just not.
I think we're actually saying, yes, we can do that. We can, it said discussion regarding methods private citizens can employ to conserve culinary water.
We agree.
I think Facebook, yeah, we agree with that. We don't need to strike it. We agree we should do Facebook posts, articles, but yeah, we're not going to create any ordinances
I'm just
saying.
saying strike it on this page.
Okay.
okay.
Check it out.
We're checked off. Okay, let's go on. Let's go to item, I got new glasses and I gotta get this at the right.
Yes.
F,
Yeah.
discussion regarding water assistance program directed by the State Department of Workforce.
We're
State,
gonna beat this water to death.
So we were approached by Department of Workforce Services. They're offering a new program, similar to the HEAT program, if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
It actually goes on the exact same guidelines. The caveat is the city has to agree, enter into a contract with Workforce Services in order for citizens to be eligible.
I think,
To have their water paid for.
There are some criteria. The program won't start till November 1st. Their primary goals right now are focusing on shut off, people that are shut off or at risk of being shut off. It will go to a phase 3 where if they just start getting behind on their bills. It is pretty restrictive. There are numbers in here. In 2019 to 2020, we only had 59 households that were eligible for the HEAT program.
no,
And from October to May of 2021, there were only 35.
And we do participate in the HEAT program, right?
yes.
It's
So-
different. Yeah, individual households can go and
Can
get
apply.
approved. They can actually get the check sent to them. With this scenario, it has to come to the water company, which is us. And that's why they want us to sign an agreement.
So how
Yeah.
much administration would be required for this?
Not a lot. All eligibility goes through the Department of Workforce Services. We will have to provide some water statistics on those households in the aggregate.
Okay.
So I don't
Which
see it
we
as a
have.
big burden. No, it would
Okay.
be minimal to us.
If this keeps
It's
the water
actually
on
good.
in some
I'd like
homes,
to do
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
sounds like a good thing.
Yeah,
I'm good.
No
with
issues.
that
put
too.
this on.
It's a health thing. for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
We'll bring a contract back. Next week.
All right, thanks. Then.
That's paid for through ARPA, right?
ARPA or similar, yeah.
Yeah.
2024.
Next year, we'll do the sewer program to keep that flowing.
Can you shut off sewer to a house?
No.
I was gonna say,
You cannot.
sounds crappy.
Council,
Sorry, I had to.
council, we'll go ahead and move forward on that.
Yes.
Do I get-
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
That doesn't require a vote, does it?
No,
Yeah,
we just
I'm
want to
okay.
know,
Yeah,
It will.
it will
Yeah.
eventually.
okay.
Yeah.
Judged by the time that item.
There's an interlocal agreement associated. So
And you're good.
All right.
Good job.
Okay, Harvard property rezone R1 to R3. This is located on Bluff Road north of Antelope. The current zoning is R1, which is a 12,000 square foot lot. We want to change to R3 to be a 8,000 square foot lot, just so you can get a few more lots. This is it's only 2.3 acres, so this is a small low property. Planning Commission is recommending approval.
That small of a lot, do they get any more than just one more lot?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
get like,
there's
there's like 8 lots.
It's 1, 2, 3, 5, 7.
No, I meant more than they would normally get.
No.
Yeah, they have.
I didn't see
7.
what do they
Right
get. Yeah, I
Here-
saw that. I
here
wasn't
in-
saying, I wasn't asking that question.
It's
I was
not much
asking-
more
getting
than what
about
the
2
original.
Yeah, yeah, that's the question that wasn't answered in the packet.
Oh, compared from R1.
Yeah,
to
compared
would
to
be
R1, I
like
don't know
3
that they-
acres
Yeah.
in
And
there.
it's
for-
I think
unusual.
all they're
gives them
getting
about
is one
2.
extra lot.
I think it might
Yeah,
be
and-
2.
The,
And they're
the biggest
unusual
difference is the
sizes and
required
shapes.
lot width.
Right,
So
Right.
the
Right.
sizes of some of those lots are actually really big.
right, because of the odd shapes.
Right.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, 8, sorry.
Yeah.
Got it. We were with you. We understand the
Yeah.
question.
Lisa, you want to lead us off with this one?
Yeah, to Dave's point, we're not talking about a big density increase. We're talking about fitting another couple of homes and giving them the ability to have an odd shaped lot, but large. So I think it's fine.
Okay,
I'm there.
Lee, you're there.
Yeah.
Seth?
I personally don't like creating zone islands in an R1 zone. We're going from R1 to an R3. All the surrounding lots are R1. They have an expectation of R1. And I admit that on R1, you could build how many? Maybe half,
2.3.
2.3 homes.
And this
You get
allows
5 or
4.
so.
So 5 homes versus 7. So I mean, this isn't a huge difference, but I personally don't care for zone islands. It just makes it really difficult to administer. And it's not what the expectation of the neighborhood is. It's not what the general plan says. So I'm personally not a big fan of this.
Okay, Dave?
well, I agree with everything that Jordan said. The only exception I take to it is I literally think because of the arrangement, we're really just adding one home in there. And that's when I start to step back and go,
Why
what's
is
the
it, is
big
it worth doing a zone
what,
change?
yeah, is it worth the zone change at all? I mean, is there really any point to this? We're getting one more lot.
Well, and I think that we're next to West Davis Corridor now, and we're also going to be next to, I mean, these are, I live over in this area, right over there.
Are we next to West Davis Corridor?
Yes, that's Bluff Road's right there.
I know Bluff
this
Road's
is-
right there, but there's
this-
houses that are,
This is where the parking right's going to be. And this is,
Yeah, you're right.
this is 3,000. This is where
Oh,
Bluff Road's
got it.
going right there.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's gonna be an
I don't-
interchange just over here and,
I don't see any reason to do it. I mean,
but
it's not a big
the thing
impact
is,
though.
I've driven this area with, all of these are like larger lot because they have been older residential areas. It's not like they moved there with it. R1 neighborhood, it was, they have like extra land in their backyard and most of them want to subdivide it. So
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying.
I'm saying R3 makes sense.
So what I'm saying is if we do this, is there a precedent that the next older home wants to take down and say, now can I have 3 lots on my lot because you gave the neighbor R3? And if that's the case,
It's
are we
next
gonna
to-
make all of this R3 eventually? And I don't know that I like
And
that.
part of,
Then it
I
would
mean,
be non-island anymore.
across
Make
the
your case.
street from, and if you want to think about R3, and the reason why is because these lots are odd shaped. But also, if you want to look at R3, you go across Antelope on the south side, Doral right there going to Buffalo Point. That's all R3. But people wouldn't actually realize that because they're just not as deep of a lot, but they're really nice homes.
I live on.
Are we ready for a motion?
I don't think
It's
we made
not
any
a
motion.
motion.
I'm sorry, it's a work session.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's take this to the work session, we'll have a vote. Okay. All right, let's go on. Somebody pinch me so I know which hand's up. Let's go to 2.
Potential amendment to town center overlay ordinance and the effects on a potential gas station. So last time you guys said you wanted to invite Maverick. Here we are. I guess.
Want us to come up? Hi.
Yes.
Hi,
How
welcome.
are you? Thank you so much.
We have lots of
Appreciate this
chairs.
Opportunity. I just want to say that we really appreciate being able to attend this meeting. I've really enjoyed the discussion, to be honest with you. Megan, it's good to see you
Good
again.
to see you. Thank you for the mug.
You're welcome.
Wait, you got a mug?
I got one of those big mugs. They don't
We
make
were
them
gonna
anymore.
bring cookies, and I kind of felt bad as I was sitting here and like, it's such a long meeting and everybody would enjoy cookies, so I apologize.
No, please
I didn't
don't.
realize, please don't.
It ends up being tempting.
Diet Coke?
No,
Okay. A Bahama Mama for you then. Well, I've really enjoyed the discussion tonight. I am so impressed with each one of you. The discussion has been really excellent on protecting property rights. We've listened to drought relief and various other things. What we want to do is we have an existing store that is located at 2000 and Antelope Drive. It's a little small country store. It's on approximately 0.68 acre, roughly 1,500 square feet, a few dispensers. It's a really tight, kind of older model. And so what we would like to do is relocate that across the street, just right next to the CVS. It's also located next to the park, which would be a fantastic amenity to provide food and drinks to
You're gonna be the
those
new
that-
slushy stand.
We would
Just
love to
saying.
be the new slushy stand. And in fact, we worked very closely with your city staff to try to accommodate those that are at the park, bringing in sidewalk, picnic tables located close to that entrance, so that those that are at the park can safely commute into our store and also enjoy some of our picnic tables. But the new site that we're looking at, I don't want to throw out dollar amounts, but we're looking at anywhere between 4 to 6 million. And so it is an investment for us. We're hoping that it's a nice investment for the city as well. At the current zone that we're located in, It will allow us, I believe it's a permitted use. If not, it may be a conditional use, but I think it's a permitted use. Thanks, Noah. With the current design standards, we would comply 100% with this particular concept plan. I have been working on this site with CVS. I engaged negotiations last year, actually, and it took us several months to get the property under contract. And while we were under contract, there was a recommendation to rezone this particular site from general commercial to office. And fortunately, that was turned down, which would give us the ability to place a C-store here. But the last several months, I believe that there has been an application to review certain design guidelines that has also prohibited us from moving forward. We can't submit an application on this particular location because there is that pending design standards that is out there. We would love just to get started on it as soon as possible. We did ask residents. We put a friendly petition in the store, and it included this layout. And
I've been
also,
approached at church many times.
you have? Oh, I love your I love your ward. I was gonna say your people, but I am your people. I love your ward. And then also the elevations, and we received over 600 signatures within less than 2 weeks. That residents do want this design and this location, and so we just want to get started and start moving on it.
Would this mean that the other one would close across the street?
You know what, that is something that we have discussed internally, and we think it's a fantastic opportunity to open up a vacant parcel to be rebuilt at that particular corner across the kitty corner
So
from the
you're-
clock tower. So yes.
You're talking
yes,
about
close.
removing the tanks and everything. that kind of-
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and in fact, what we typically do is we have to work closely with the state in getting permits and approvals to pull those out of ground. They'll also run several tests associated with it, and then they'll provide us with a no further action letter.
Question on the drive access though, because of the island. How do you plan to kind of like work around that? Or what do you think that will keep people from going there?
The island in the middle of the
The
street.
road island?
Well, fortunately, the Rhode Island is
the
stops
median.
just short
Barely.
of their lot. This is-
That is, you know, that's a really good question because access is absolutely critical to us. And we typically always locate on just strictly corners, but this is a little bit different because as you pointed out, I don't know your name. Jordan, as Jordan pointed out, the first access, it is limited because there is a median there. And then the second is actually a full movement. And so you can make all turns. And then what is really nice is CVS is going to leave we're going to leave the sites open so that commuters can actually get out on this cross street. I think it's 2000, isn't it?
So you're like cross access.
There will be lots of cross access.
Behind and go out on 2000.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, we're working closely with this adjacent landowner next to us to secure additional cross access at this location too. Yeah, he's wonderful.
So I'd like to have you speak to a situation that is pretty common, not necessarily with Maverick stores, but when a gas station may relocate, sometimes one of these smaller mom and pop gas stations want to take over the past site.
Yeah, we didn't know all that.
I'm just asking you to speak to that and how you address that so that, you know, it's not just left out there that we get a clown
You know
stop or whatever is.
I appreciate the question, and we should have introduced ourselves.
Yeah,
So my name is Leslie with Maverick, and this is Belinda, and I actually cover the Utah area for acquiring all sites, also Wyoming, and then a few other sites I can't disclose. But then I also take care of the full disposition portfolio, which would include this particular location. Something that we always require on any surplus properties that we have is that there will be a C-store use restriction associated to that
Okay.
particular property, because we don't want to see
a competition that is located kind of.
No, I'm good with
kitty
that. I
corner.
just wanted to know that that was part of your business practice, because there are others, you know, out there that they just turn them over and then they become kind of the rundown gas station.
Or an abandoned one, which.
Yeah.
There's a couple in Clearfield.
Yeah,
Yes,
we,
there
yeah,
are.
we will absolutely pull out the tanks, the dispensers. We've also talked to the city about potentially removing the building, and we've received that internal approval to go ahead and do that so that we can see some actual redevelopment on that side as well.
So how fast would you make that available? Is this a year-long process to
We want
rehabilitate
to,
the
we
site?
want to submit our plans like yesterday. Exactly.
Because you, I mean, you know, we want, sorry, Jordan, but we want to be able to turn over things like that. We don't want a vacant lot.
Especially right there.
Oh, as far as that, so as far as that goes, what we would do, that's an excellent question. It would probably take us anywhere from 4 to 6 months to hopefully entitle this new site. And then we would want to completely relocate into our new site. And then at that point, we would start, absolutely, we would start that process with removing the tanks. It does take a little bit of time to work with the state to remove the underground tanks, but that would start as soon as we were able to open the other store, and then we would move.
Yeah,
forward
and
with
that's
that
just my
process.
question is, once the new store's open, I wouldn't expect you to do anything until the new store's open. But then how long does it take to make this marketable? I mean, is
Yes.
this 4 to 6 years or 4 to 6 months?
No,
To pull the tanks out and put it on the market?
I would say it's probably, I want to give our environmental guys a little bit of time, but I would say at least anywhere between 12 to 18 months, just to
Okay.
make sure that they have enough time. It's just like we have to get permits to entitle a new site. They also have to go through that same process.
Chemicals and all that.
Which-
So we're gonna have a year to year and a half vacancy there.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
is actually.
It's not terrible.
I was gonna say that kind of lines up well with West
freeway,
Vegas corridor
yeah.
breaking down. I
Oh,
mean,
it
a lot
does.
of things are gonna be up in the air.
Yes, that's a good point, because I think that's slated to be
2024.
constructed in the next few years, is what I was going to say.
Yeah, it should be
So-
done in about 2 to 3 years there, so that works.
So my question here is actually, so this drive aisle right here
Yes,
is how we take our kids to school.
great.
So right now, there's several different ways traffic can move around in here. And while that's can be a good thing, it can also be problematic. So one of the items that I know, I don't know if you've talked to it, is would you be willing to rotate this 90 degrees and put the picnic tables on this side? And the reason for that is I prefer there to just be a single drive aisle kind of out here by the road.
What are you saying to?
Right here.
The
This
concern is that
this
people that pull
this
in
kid.
90 degrees to the drive aisle become a risk, because they'll be backing out or even backing in
Yeah.
where kids are coming
Out.
to and from. So
I like that idea to kind of direct traffic, because you don't want it just open. We have explored with the staff several different opportunities to rotate the building, but it doesn't work. We have something that is called a turning template. It's really important for us. We've got these semis that are pulling into our site and then dropping fuel.
Well, it
and
looks
then
like they come
pulling
in
out.
here and then go that way, right?
Exactly. And then same
we're just
thing.
talking about the
Yeah.
patron parking that's up against the
Yeah,
building.
so what I would say is, can we take this store, and I'm gonna draw on this beautiful map you gave me, and put the store something more like this, with the table still right here next to the park, but your store, and I'm sorry, no one else can see, but have the store here like this, so that this becomes the primary drive aisle, where the semi comes in, these guys come in and fill up, but it limits the number of ways cars can go this way. So anyone coming in here, where they come in here and have to go over here.
Can I just say, what about Jordan? Just so while you go to speak to that one, even if there's just a way to eliminate the parking that comes straight out of here, with maybe an extension here, or maybe move the building over. I don't know. The point is that these
Right.
people
These
that
people
back
backing
out
into the aisles.
into this
This
is
drive
the
aisle.
risk. And it's only about 6 slots there, parking stalls, but they're
Yeah,
at great
so-
risk.
What
maybe
if
shift the
you shift
building
or shift the parking spots?
You know what?
Yes.
That's
What if rather
actually,
than shift the building, you shift and angle your parking?
what we
Or
could
like,
do
could just keep the
is
whole
actually
thing west.
eliminate these parking
Uh-huh.
stalls,
Put
shift this
over
here. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
what
yeah.
we could do is shift all of this down and then include your stalls.
Yeah.
right
Yes.
here.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
again, if you could, the other thing is if you can rotate this building, and again, I don't know if you're even open to that way, these people, instead of walking all the way around the building to get inside, you now have a service entrance to the park. You have entrance that these guys are only walking across a single aisle to get to your front door.
But then you
And
have the
you're
semi
still
problem.
working with all the semi is still going to go like that.
Well, that's your fuel, but we
Maybe.
also have our food trucks and
Delivery
others.
of
And so,
groceries.
yeah, so it's not just our semi that pulls in, but we also have this, and then we also have our dumpsters as well. And so that's why we've designed it in that way. We've actually tried several different iterations where we have shifted the building so that it is kind of parallel to the park. We've also done it where we've shifted it to the front. The site is kind of a smaller site, and so there are significant limitations associated with it. And so we have probably, I don't know how many revisions we've done on it, but it's been many, and we've been working with city staff for probably, I don't know, 5-6 months. We've been to so many city meetings and we haven't even applied yet. Like it's been excessive, to be honest with you.
Council,
It's been a lot.
Can I remind you too, that we're talking about a site plan and that's way ahead of where
Yes.
we are.
Right.
That we are
Thank
really
you.
looking at a text amendment to the
Yeah.
overlay zone.
Yeah, and I
So-
think that's where my question comes in. It's just, I know we're a little bit putting the cart before the horse here, but we wanted to hear from you guys to come in and tell us where maybe this zone or this ordinance discussion kind of puts you guys out of place a little bit. And so could you guys talk a little bit about the orientation of the building being placed so far back versus on the street, why that isn't a challenge with the existing tenant to the west? And
Thank you for bringing that
Can
up.
you talk-
Yeah,
can you
so
talk to us about that?
we have explored all the ways that we could possibly orient this building closer to the street. We have several issues with that. The first being, if we bring the building to the front of the lot and have doors and entrances at the front of the building, that puts our employees at risk because they need to be oriented toward the fuel court for the safety of people fueling their vehicles.
You have a door at your back.
Right, and
at
then
your front,
having-
and then at the side,
Yeah,
it's too dangerous.
having people enter from behind, unseen, could be a safety hazard for them and other end customers. The second issue we had was children at the park spilling off into the fueling area. Kids run, I've got kids, they just, buzz off whenever they feel like it sometimes, and you have little control on occasion. But so that's a big issue for us. Having semi trucks come through there where kids could be in close contact with them for, dropping the fuel.
We've also had conversations with CVS, and we were able to provide or obtain some additional information from them within the last few weeks. And larger corporations such as Maverick, CVS, I know we have sites where if there's something that is right next to us that will block our visibility, we would rather have a vacant site rather than allow something to build at that particular site. And so when we actually negotiated the purchase agreement with CVS, they were very, they asked for a concept plan, they asked for our elevations, what our sign package looked like. And we actually went through a few revisions with them, and that is how we also obtained the approval for this particular site. But if you locate the building too close to the street where it blocks their visibility, you're going to have a vacant site for a very long time. And they've expressed that to us. We can get that in writing as well. If that is needed, we would love to do that. But
So council, we would
Thank
need
you.
a text amendment to move the building back. Because the overlay right now requires the building to be forward. If I'm,
No.
No.
And there's a door on
Uh,
the side, right? Or-
It's the
There's a
opposite.
door on the west side.
Yeah.
Right, so we might.
Okay, so the
Text
kids can
amendment
get
would
to.
prevent them from-
Yeah. So that you can.
The
amendment
putting
it back.
Putting it back.
Changes because the dumpster.
If we do nothing, they
There's a
can, they
monument there
can
on
be
the
where they
corner.
are.
And the dumpster.
It's maybe not the best
No.
idea.
So let's talk the text amendment. So
So
text wise, I'm just concerned about what I pointed out, and that is that parking has to be safe. So, I want to make sure that somewhere in here, we don't suggest that people that they park towards a main access. Now, this is one of the few spots in the city where we have that, but as we develop more on a main street like this, which we're going to do with the highway expansion, how do we protect these throughways from the high accident potential that they become? Because this exists a lot in Ogden too. I know places where, because it's a main drive aisle, but people back into that main drive aisle, it causes some real, problems, regular accidents. I want to avoid that. They could address it, but I text amendment wise, sorry
But not as much
to
on
move
the overlay,
forward.
the town center overlay though.
Yeah, how do because there will be other places in the town overlay where this could potentially happen.
We already have language in our site planning process where we review traffic circulation patterns and things like that. So it's already in there.
So you're saying this would be caught and would be filtered out?
Yeah, already.
Okay, I'm good. Yeah.
We didn't know what to put there.
Yeah, the language that we've been working on, if you look at this site in front of you, the parking and the setbacks are the main things that would be problematic for the way they want to develop the site.
Right.
And the reason for the building placement being next to the street is the same reason they say that they don't want it to be next to the street, is the safety of kids. And so, but we're talking about pedestrian safety along the street, but it's also
pedestrian
about
safety from the park.
From the park. So we want everybody to be safe. It's just, if we look at these standards and go back to why we're even going round and round, and what we're even working on here is in the town center, we want a pedestrian oriented design.
I'm going to suggest that I think that at least in the city center where we have a lot of park space, I'm more concerned about being safe between the park than I am between the street.
Well, I don't
because
think
people
you have
don't
to
come
choose.
running in from the street.
Yeah, I don't think you have to choose either or. That wasn't what I was suggesting. What's more important, the street or the park? I think you can get both. It's just becomes problematic. A gas station use just has certain, you have the semis and the traffic. It's intrinsically, that's just what goes along with a gas station
Or any retail.
or a lot of retail. I included in the packet a lot of pictures of gas stations who have flipped them around, and it's just, I think we might lose Maverick if we go through with this text amendment, but we're also trying to preserve the architectural feel and our brand and what we're trying to accomplish with the town center. So if you guys are it sounds like you guys are really excited about this, and we want Maverick, and we've asked them to work around this. It's just whether or not they will is to be seen. You mentioned that you worked on a plan that maybe you flipped the.
We did, and we did make a good faith effort to talk to CBS, and they made it clear that this is not something they would ever approve for us to be closer to.
So just back to the ordinance itself. We talk a lot in this council about being friendly to development of commercial. I kind of see that the way this is going, we're a lot less friendly, not just to Maverick, but to a lot of traditional styles that people just demand these days. And so I wouldn't want to cut off our options because we're trying to demand something that's going to take forever to develop, because people will just assume we are too close to our neighboring locations. It's too easy for a Maverick or anybody else to say, I'm just going to put this in West Point or Clearfield or Layton, and y'all can drive to it because your standards are just too strict. So that's my concern.
to add to that, it sounds like with the restrictions from CVS, we are prohibiting any building from being built here ever.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I've seen.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
I've seen a lot of things that could be built. I mean,
if CVS says you can't build this far, and we're saying you have to build right here, it sounds like we're in an impasse.
So, okay, there's CVS.
Okay.
I am still waiting for the exact number of the setback. They said if it's too close, it blocks their signage, but I have a hunch that there, you could set that building back 20 feet and still see their signage just fine and still accomplish the goals of what we're trying to do. Is what I'm concerned about, and it's up to you guys. Economic development wise, we adopted a vision. General plan, we adopted a vision for the town center. That vision, I know that can seem strict and restricting, but it also plays towards our economic development goals and our brand. So
we adopted that formally yet with all the signage and everything? I feel like that's still a potential amendment.
Signage is different. The economic development plan we adopted.
Okay.
So is what I'm saying is, remember the non-I-15 experience, the pictures in the packet, the standard run of the mill. If we want that, and we're just hungry for any economic development, let's just proceed and we can bag the town center or modify it according to our needs. But my point is, we started going down a road with a certain vision, and we've got a good opportunity that would generate sales tax, but it doesn't exactly fit what we've programmed. So if we want to shift, we can just not do this, and that's up to you guys.
No, I think that we can keep a vision, but I think that this also works with how I would use a park. I would be like, hey, I'm gonna run over there and get some drinks for the kids.
I'm looking forward to this slushy.
And I also, along those lines, I think that there's room for both. I'm looking at the design of this and I'm saying, that's exactly what we have going on currently. I think there is a give and take for both, because if we get so restrictive with design that we send away something that 100% of our citizens would use, then we just tied our hands financially and economically for our tax base and our progress in the city, purely for aesthetics, but they're answering our aesthetics here. I think we're talking about a setback that nobody will even care that it's back 20 feet or forward 20 feet, but they will recognize the design of the building, which I think the timbers and the design of that to me is attractive, and it's similar to what we have going on in town square. We also already currently have an entirely designed town square with different architecture everywhere. So it's not like this was the first building that was setting the precedence for all of them. We're talking about fitting this into an existing development plan that's already been in existence for 20 something years since it was first designed with Walmart. And so I just feel like I think we need to be really careful. We talk so much about developing and having these spaces and having our commercial development, but we are not considering who is going to be owning those stores and in those office buildings, and who has the funds in order to get that money from or has the demographic studies to get the funding from the bank. I mean, unless you tried to do this yourself, you don't understand that you have very limited population that has the capacity to fill this space that we're requiring. And when we have an opportunity, in my opinion, to create something beautiful that will be very successful and currently is very successful, we're not reinventing this town center wheel here. I think that we can serve both masters on
The other
this.
thing to keep in mind that goes right along with what she's saying is that where we have the existing buildings that are facing inward, we get a lot of complaints that it's just too hard to get through those parking lots. And yes, we understand that maybe we could do something in there, but it cheats a lot of the parking stalls too. It makes them less. And so you have businesses that want traffic to come up and they can't find a space to get in and out. And so I've had emails from a lot of people who suggested, I'll just leave the city because it's just easier for me as an elderly person to get in and out than to try to work with this very difficult situation where I may not be able to park anywhere near the building I'm trying to go into. And I have to say, I'd rather those people stay in the community.
I think I know where 4 of you stand, Seth.
I will say I get 2 cents off every gallon. I am a consumer.
You have the nitro card?
I haven't nitroed yet, but
Maybe you should clarify that. I don't know if there's like a deal being cut here.
Yeah. No.
I don't think they sell them.
No.
Me too.
Yeah. So I mean, I get where you're coming from. I understand that everything that you guys are saying is definitely relevant citywide. The town center overlay to me is an exceptional location that has features that we're either pushing for or we're not, and that's okay. I mean, if we're not as a council consistent on that vision, it's not going to work, right? We have to be pretty well committed because it makes hard choices like saying no to a Maverick design standard, and that bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush is a little bit present here now for me. I mean, if there was concessions that we could get to at all, I'm looking still at like the 15-foot sign. I think that would be outside of the overlay. I think that still would not be compliant, right?
No, we haven't made that adjustment.
No, yeah, we're talking about the zone, though, the overlay zone. We're talking about whether
You guys care about how big your sign is?
We can, to an extent. So there is the issue of motorists being able to read the sign and make a decision to
Yeah, I
move
see your
over
kind
and
of
traffic
vision
and
path
slow
here.
and turn.
We
But
can
beyond that, we
conform-
can conform to.
We can conform to the proposal for signage. We've
Yeah.
discussed that. The only thing that we have a hard time with in the proposal is, as Noah said, the setback and then the parking in the front of the street. And I think that's the only thing.
I think that's about it. And the only other thing that would impact negatively us and Mr. Peck is when I discussed this with UDOT, they mentioned that they would prefer that this access line up with Heritage Lane. So that would put his entrance right in the middle of his lot and kind of prevent him from building to the sidewalk as
That's
well.
not.
So but they did say.
They'll refuse to move other ones, didn't
Right.
it?
But this
But
is
they
such
did
a
say-
wide road that the through part doesn't really apply the
You don't want
same.
people going across.
Yeah, you don't want
Don't want
anybody
people going
crossing.
across
Yeah.
But they
Yeah,
did
makes
say
no
that if
sense.
he agreed to this site plan, that they would allow this.
Oh.
Yeah.
So ultimately, for me, I mean, I can see where the rest of the council is kind of going. So I would rather be on board and support a project that we can work together on that would make sense if you can make some concessions. I mean, it doesn't sound like the appetite is to adhere to the overlay as it's been presented to us. And the outcome being a good product to the community seems to outweigh the need to be so restrictive. But ultimately, I think I still want to adhere to the vision. It just doesn't seem like it's being supported. So
I think the vision is awesome. I want to.
well, it's just a vision. If you
I
don't
think
follow
it's.
it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think a lot of these need to be design goals, but I've always said that sometimes we have been where for a while we wanted the doors to only face the street, the main entrance, and
You have to look site
that's
specific.
not a good plan.
But we
And
made
it-
adjustments to
We did.
account for that, and I'm okay with it.
And so the only thing like here, I think that the Maverick being back by the park isn't breaking our vision.
Yeah.
Council, what I
That's
hear,
right.
did you have something?
If I could, before you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go, Brody.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there's no, misrepresentation of what Noah is trying to accomplish with this application. He's enforcing what the council has adopted
Right.
as a vision. Now, what I don't want him to be misrepresented as being anti-business or anything like that, because he's not. It sounds like this could have gone forward had it not been for the current property owner's restrictions, not the city's restrictions. Both the city's vision and the applicant could have come together and put together something closer to the street, were it not for the current property owners restrict. So I think they're the ones putting more of a vice on this project than the city is.
I agree.
But I just want to make sure that that's clear.
But I think we need to make allowances for those types of situations.
Yeah, this is a unique situation. Not every
This lot
property.
still has to be developed.
Yeah, not every property owner
Yeah.
has that restriction. Yeah.
We're
I
not
just-
against design standards or zoning
Yeah.
codes at all.
Yeah, and I don't
but
think you
we
are.
Want everybody to realize that there are pre-existing conditions that are going to prevent people from purchasing and building and being part of your city.
Correct.
If you don't make provisions for them to,
Flexibility.
yeah, some
Yeah.
flexibility in the code.
Well, Brody took the words right out of my
I'm
mouth.
sorry. I didn't know you were going
You're a
there.
lot more handsome and a little bit coming out of your mouth. It would seem to me we don't have an appetite to change the text. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, some of the text, I think we can't throw the entire standards out, because not everything in here prohibits you guys from.
Right.
No, but it's just the changes that we're pushing.
Well, some of the
Well, yeah,
changes.
there's a lot of
Yeah, I think there's we might be removing one line.
Yes.
Can we ask for permission to submit our application?
Yes.
Because we can't submit, we've been told we can't submit until this is resolved. And so legally, can we submit?
Council, can she submit an application?
Why would you not be able to?
You could always submit an
There's
application,
a
just it wouldn't be approved.
It can be.
We want to know how to review it.
It can be
Yeah.
under
Discussion.
review,
What
because
rules
they're
apply?
reviewing the overlay, it can be delayed for 6 months for
Yeah, the-
discussion.
Under the law, you can apply, just they would have said, we can't approve this
Until a vote.
until this
So
is
this
We
is
didn't-
settled. Yeah.
If that makes
And,
sense.
and so even this text in the packet, we've already modified this text that's here.
Yeah.
And so this isn't even the latest version of the text. I did notice that as we were reviewing it. Like, for example, this still says all front doors shall face a public street. We took that out last time.
Right.
So I know that this, I was, as I was reviewing it, I know a lot of these are not even
The current ordinance.
wording. So, other than that, I mean, I do think the
So it'd be
only,
the parking piece. We need to.
I'm like, this one.
With the parking, you did put in a provision that people
This
could
looks
screen
like
it with a wall or landscaping, and we're
That's a
prepared to,
design
you know,
for-
abide by that as well. We can add some screening as far as landscaping.
This is question.
Um,
These are not
but
really-
there are other areas where
And
they're.
it's really-
so it sounds, so looking at this, the only thing that you guys, it says maximum front setback is 40 feet. How far back are you?
But that's not a real front door.
45 feet
It's not.
is our dispenser.
It's a logo.
Oh.
This is our dispenser, and then we've got another 42 feet, and then 20, and then 14.
No.
So the maximum front setback of 40 feet is really the sticking point on all of this. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Noah?
What was that?
The main sticking point here is the maximum front setback of 40 feet. That's one of the sticking points on this one. And then the parking between the street and the building.
This is more of a.
And in most of these cases, I actually agree with those. But I admit where this is adjacent to a park, I think I would favor the pedestrian friendliness towards the park as opposed to the sidewalk is my only thing. So
what amendments do you want to make?
So what I would recommend is we look at those a little bit better. And I don't know, what I don't want to do is have this so specific that says, unless you're by a park, and then these all apply.
Unless your name is Maverick.
And you paint it orange.
Yeah, so what I want to be careful of is I actually like, other than the things that what we've already talked about in other meetings, the rest of these I'm actually okay with, but I do want to understand that in this area, I think the pedestrians will be coming from a different direction.
So can we put in there maybe a
Agreed.
clause that says unless
Very
pedestrian safety is a
comfortable
concern, and then there's,
Exactly.
some sort of language that allows
I'm-
for a
Yes.
alternative
Yeah.
option
When
with
abutting
council
a-
approval.
Sure.
When abutting a park or something like that.
Is that too squishy?
Typically, council doesn't see these, right?
Yeah,
Site plans
that,
with
we want to
planning.
have good, you want to have good direction for the planning commission to apply, otherwise they sort of.
Waffle.
You want to be pretty, you want to set some pretty clear parameters. 'cause
Well,
then-
considering we're talking about public
So
safety
I'm
on both
saying,
sides too,
when,
so I guess that would
when
be
a
too.
business is
Yeah.
abutting a park I think that.
which
we
is
could
only
be-
one place in the entire city center.
Well,
Not
except for that,
necessarily-
their
Oh, I
old-
guess there's a centennial.
And their old site will now become another business site.
That's true. You're absolutely right.
And then if we ever sell the police station, relocate them, that would be another one. You know, there's
Spot on.
possibilities.
So
Because it's prime real estate.
I do think that when we're adjacent to parks, the pedestrians are coming from a different direction.
And I don't exactly know how the back of a gas station is pedestrian friendly. But regardless, if you want to cross drive aisles, so. Yeah.
Perhaps we could we can craft this and put this on the business session for discussion. And then hopefully we hit all the right things. And if not, we could just redline it during the meeting.
Okay.
We could just move this
Is
along.
that good?
Okay.
Good with you?
Thank you.
Can we see you in 2 weeks?
You're wonderful, all of you, thank you.
The big thing is, no, I do want to say that I love all of this, but I do think this one is a little bit, and we keep finding exceptions, but so I see your point.
Life is exceptions.
We talked about this with
That- That's okay, that's where we.
Codes are supposed to be living documents where you're always looking at them.
And best serve your city and its citizens.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cody, thank you.
Okay. Item 3, Manoa.
Okay. We want to not have to notice public hearings in the newspaper anymore.
Agreed.
Can we
Agree.
just be done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Done.
Please. save
We've
the
said
minutes.
for a long time,
Can
that
we
is a
put
waste
this-
of time and money.
Consent.
Can this go on consent?
Amen.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, number 4.
Pool setbacks used to be 8 foot. Now we want to do 6 foot.
Consent.
Why?
Yeah, oh, for the pool.
It's-
Why?
It's because it's
I read
been
through it
deemed
all.
okay and
8
it's
feet's
safe.
too
so
far.
It's
fine.
not a
2 feet's
flooding
gonna make a
issue.
huge difference.
It
Jordan?
could. It
So,
could.
so we are, this is one where this was brought to me by several neighbors and residents. They came and talked to me.
Because you live in a smaller zone, which makes us for a smaller footprint available for, see, let me just throw out this. I did a lot of thinking about this one, and I thought about the fact that I've helped several in-laws remodel their kitchen because I've worked in cabinetry before. And a lot of time people say, oh, I would love to have an island kitchen. But if you don't have a minimum distance so that you can get around that island comfortably, then you end up having an obstacle more than you have a useful island.
True.
And so my point here is that if you can't get around this pool safely and reasonably because your pool minimum barrier is right up against the neighboring fence, are we not having a similar issue? Because
A walkway usually needs to be 24 feet, 24 inches minimum, you know.
How wide is a sidewalk?
well, hallways are 36.
On the
Yeah,
side
so
of the-
if you want,
Yeah.
because
5
I'm
feet.
saying like sometimes between cabinetry.
So this is larger than a sidewalk.
I agree.
It's
but-
twice the sidewalk, twice the hallway.
Okay.
I think that you're worrying about. 2 feet.
So, go ahead.
I'm
Finish your
worried
thought.
about
Yeah.
having your walkway be right up against the fence and the neighbor's property. Usually you want some little distance between the finished area
Mhm.
so that you're not just like butted up against the fence.
So a lot of the ones I was reading set it at 3 feet. In Utah, 5 tends to be the average.
Okay.
8 was nowhere to be seen.
Okay, so my point is, I guess then, if 5 is the average, you're leaving 1 foot of space between the fence and which isn't useful for grass.
But they're not saying that they have to put 5
yeah.
foot of concrete. They might only
It
be
just-
3 foot of concrete.
But
for
just-
an
They can do
edge.
whatever they want
They can
just
with
do
that
whatever
6
to pull
feet.
6 feet away
They're
from
not,
there.
it doesn't have to be
From their
concrete right to the edge.
Yes.
It's just that buffer feet from your fence, that's all.
We're not saying we're just saying we will allow you to go within 6 feet of a fence.
For the edge of your pool.
You can do 40 feet if you want, or 10 feet.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm there.
Yeah,
Just-
but
It's
what
not-
I'm saying is I had neighbors come in and say, because they had the contractors asking them
Why they can't do just
Right.
5.
why they can't, they said, why are you guys the most restrictive on pools in the state? And I said,
I don't know.
I have no idea. I can ask. And so that's why I brought this forward to say, you know what, we've had some valid questions. Is there a reason why we're at 8 feet? And they came back and said, no.
So they could have.
There's no
2
rationale
feet.
for 8.
What I'm saying.
There's
is
no
they could
rationale
have
for 8.
2 feet, 3 feet.
Just remember this when we
concrete.
go back to the whether it's an 8-foot sidewalk or a 20-foot sidewalk.
I actually was going to bring that up. If
I was just thinking, if it applies one place, it's got to apply others.
Yeah, and you're the one that was saying the sidewalks were too big.
Yes, I was. 20 feet is outrageous.
I can-
But if it is 8 foot a minimum, why is it not a minimum here?
Brody?
We're not
And maybe
talking
it's
about-
not.
Because it's a public walkway.
It's not
I
walkway,
can
it's
make a
just
rationale
perimeter.
for 8.
It's just perimeter.
Go ahead.
side area.
I don't know if that was the intent of
It's
this
not
ordinance. was written,
Sidewalk or.
But
cement.
from a safety perspective, a young child can't jump off the top of the fence as easy and go 8 feet into the pool.
Oh.
Oh.
Now 6 foot would be pretty hard to.
Yeah, and not that that is even
Who's gonna climb on top of a vinyl
an
fence? and
issue.
try
I
to
don't
do
know.
that?
that
My
is-
son would do it.
Jump on
I mean,
top
I'll be
of
honest, my kids
the
for sure.
roof.
And
So I have an above ground
I
pool
watch
and
my
my
kids do
kids
it every
leap
day.
from but that's only 4 feet. So my kids from a vinyl fence,
Are you speaking against this?
no, I'm saying they can only jump
Okay.
about 4 feet before they.
Should we bring some kids and fences in? And
I'm not gonna, I just want
What's the
to,
hypotenuse of that?
I don't care. Go ahead.
I'm just saying this.
Trajectory.
So based on the feedback I got, this is just fine by me. The only thing that I also asked about was in a lot of the ordinances I read, they also had a restriction on proximity to a structure. And so I brought that up
That's
as
for
well.
flooding, though.
That was for a leaking pool.
Right.
And
That makes sense.
it can and so some of the ordinances actually said 20 feet from a neighboring structure. If you want to sink your own house, they weren't going to say anything, but most of the ordinances said 20 feet from existing structure. Is there a reason why that wasn't?
But they're not talking about a shed, because that can be considered a structure too.
They said living, like, or for example, if you sink someone's
A
garage.
domicile. is what
Sure,
I'm saying.
but still, if you're waterlogging the ground and someone's garage starts to sink, they would have an issue with that.
Their spouse.
And so that was the only thing that I wanted to talk about as well is, was there due diligence on proximity to a neighboring structure? Yeah, not a shed, but yeah, I can't remember how they worded it. I sent it in the text I sent to you.
A domicile or something.
But yeah, is the reason why they didn't do anything with that?
Yeah, they looked at even your text and all of the different scenarios and just ultimately figured it would add too much inflexibility in your own backyard if you're trying to measure all these other structures. You guys could add that back in there if you wanted to.
No.
I just wanted to let you guys know that was in there. That was something that we'd asked to be considered, and it sounds like there wasn't any compelling reason to do so.
No, not, yeah, I mean, I was in the planning commission on that one, and it was a very quick discussion. They didn't want to take it up, if I remember right.
Okay.
It was a.
No, I'm good.
So this seems to make us equally restrictive to the neighboring cities. So
equally less restrictive.
Sure.
I will share one quick thought. We should have some form of insulation, because a guy that I used to work with at the cabinet shop was from Sweden, and he decided to build a hot tub in his yard. He had the greenest grass all summer because he didn't insulate the pool. He created springtime in his backyard.
Okay. Consent agenda?
Sure.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Steve, let's talk about ARPA.
So, you didn't win.
Remember, it's not me.
All right, round two, here we go. So CARES Act, we've actually completed spending on. This is the next round. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the American Recovery Plan Act. Not going to bore you with all the details. I think you guys had a chance to go through a lot of it. The big thing for me is, or to know, is we have till 2024 to spend this money. So I don't know if we're in a huge hurry.
My only worry with this, after reading everything else, and I'm not going to ask you to go through it all, but was that with the last, it seemed like there were a lot of rules that kind of came out as we went through.
Right.
And I'm almost expecting the same.
Yes.
So my only concern is that we keep on top of that so that we don't lose or opportunity or funding because of that. So
And the
other
longer
than
you
that, I'm
wait-
good.
The longer you wait, the more restrictive it becomes. and
Yeah, so maybe
you
if
can-
we used it right away, we'd be in better shape.
Well,
I
you're
was
just-
actually
you're just
surprised at
beholden to less.
how little restrictions were in this, because the original
It's very flexible.
amount we got was so much more restrictive.
Right, agreed.
Because we can even use this for police and safety and.
Yeah, but there were some things in here that I thought were vague, like, you know, can you use this on past expenses that maybe you incurred during COVID, or can you not? And I don't think it really answered that.
It does in some, like it would say, if you haven't compensated your, so like your police officers
Yeah.
or your EMTs, that you could compensate them for what they did during more COVID restricted times. But you're right, there weren't specifics about timeframes. It was just a general
Right.
vague idea.
And I found it fascinating. We could even use it for facilitating water reuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, big meeting.
And
There's
water
some
in general,
interesting
maybe even
things
a
this
water
time.
tank.
Right.
So the important addition to
And
this
could we
one.
pay off our water tank? Because
No.
I was
No,
looking
you
for
can't
that.
use it
Yeah.
for existing debt,
Exactly, but we could put it.
But it was done
but it could
during
be towards a new tank, which we will need also.
okay.
Tank or supplanting.
Yeah, so I think
Or
what's gonna
a
come out of this,
retention basin.
they're calling it the interim final rule, which means they're gonna make changes.
Yeah.
Who knows how long? And
Yeah.
they're gonna continue to update their question and answers, which I find the most helpful because there are a lot of applicable items in there. I pulled a few, put it in the factual summation. Obviously, the debt one is a no. But the big change is for capital projects for culinary,
Right.
and sewer and telecommunications.
So not secondary.
No,
No.
no,
So
it's
not a,
drinkable
uh,
water.
But it
And they-
didn't it say
retention
something about
basin.
stormwater though?
No, this one,
I
it
thought
does
it
say
did.
they have to
Okay.
comply with the EPA's Clean Water Revolving Fund, which a lot of our
It was really
drinking
long.
or our culinary water projects meet that requirement. Robert would be better to know what would be qualified, what wouldn't, but
And it can also be used for parks too.
Okay, so I think the question is yes or no, and I think the answer is yes, because why would we say no?
and if you remember, we actually accepted this money
Yeah.
prior with the resolution.
We just want to know what our priorities are. Is
Right,
that what
and
we-
Yeah.
And a lot of them are, we could spend it on similar categories, for example, I think we should, I'd recommend holding some money for COVID relief. There's still,
Definitely,
we're having an
like for
uptick.
business, yeah.
We might need to buy more supplies and things like that.
And also if we end up going in any type of shutdown again,
Yeah.
we're gonna need to hold it
We
for
want to help businesses.
relief of
potentially.
businesses.
And we only have half the money now. It's total around $3.7 million. And so I guess the long story short is we don't have to
But we
allocate
don't have
everything
to
right
decide
now.
that now.
No. So, and this could come up, we could even,
I kind of feel like we ought to take it up with the or with the budget
yeah.
and kind of,
I would recommend at least giving us guidelines if COVID does start ramping up, if we could, earmark some of the funds, or at least give us the green light to say, spend it for supplies. We also have where we pay payroll for people that actually have COVID.
Yeah, like what you talked about in your email, all the.
Yeah.
So
So if you're okay with us using it for those type of items.
Yes.
Yeah, I have no issue with that.
And let's make sure we can give
within
people the
reason,
time
let's
off
hope
to
that
get
it's
well.
not, oh, we spent the whole thing.
Yeah, you can
That
set limits.
That would be concerning.
Agreed.
It hasn't been a large amount anyway.
Yeah.
No, we had, on hazard pay and COVID pay combined, we spent about $220,000.
That's pretty good.
And a lot more, the majority of that was the hazard pay. I'd bet around 20 to 30,000 was for COVID pay. So, there are parameters,
So
and
that's money we could refund out of this.
we use CARES Act.
Oh, we use CARES,
to
okay,
pay for
that's what I
that.
wasn't clear on.
But that ended June 30th. We spent it all by June 30th. We actually do have COVID pay happening now, so we're technically spending that money
So-
without.
If
the
this
budget.
takes an action, can we does it take an action or are we just gonna give general guidelines at this point?
At this point, we're just
We'll
giving
just
guidelines.
Informational only.
I would recommend,
We want to plan.
I'm
That's what
planning
I was
on
thinking.
bringing a budget opening to the council
Okay.
September, October. I would say a minimum in that budget opening,
Okay.
hit the items we know we're gonna spend some
So I
money on.
kind of maybe budget out what we spent the last time,
Just say
And make
managing
that
and
pro-
treating stormwater.
make
Oh.
that provisionally an issue, but maybe just maybe we can say, look, we're comfortable with what we did last time, but we're not comfortable going beyond without it coming up. Because that allows you to act in an emergency, but it also gives it, we wouldn't run out before we could act as a formal motion.
Yeah.
Does that
Okay,
sound
that-
reasonable?
Yeah, and I'm envisioning maybe something like we did for the CARES Act where we actually outlined, you know,
Our three
budget figures
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
categories.
yeah.
Yeah,
And maybe we can all have a chance to look at them and send back to you guys where we would like to spend our majority or focus on some areas.
Do we want to at least go over some of those items? Because it sounds like with parks, I know during
COVID, it became
the coronavirus,
very important.
those were like
Yeah.
huge.
Can you
And
spend it
so
on
People
parks,
need
though?
it.
Yes,
This time you can.
it is. I've got it
Remember
circled.
And these are like the stormwater example, I wasn't aware of that. There's a lot in this that.
Yeah,
we
it's
still
very
would have To
long.
go through and.
Yeah.
The stormwater one
Figure it
is
out.
on page 7 of the document in the
Oh, clear.
yeah,
third
Yeah,
paragraph.
this is,
But then the park one, hang on.
I can't remember all the details.
but parks, I remember thinking we
would it
wish
be
we could
wise,
spend it on parks before and the things that we were lacking in.
to
And
limit
the
discussion on this.
recreational field.
It's in
Take that
section
up.
2.18 for parks at the bottom of page 11.
Can it be used for, say,
Yeah.
replacing the surface material of a park?
It says here, wood investments
You know,
can
it's going up
improve
now.
outdoor spaces. be
But by then,
eligible
we
if
have
they're
no-
46
It'll be
investment.
CPS.
In improving
Resulting
outdoor
in
spaces could
damage.
qualify as eligible uses.
Yeah.
So improvements as well as.
Not
Because-
new, but improvements.
Improvements.
But
But
if
down
it
the road,
resulted
it
in
talks
damage
about-
or increased
We could have
maintenance
major
needs.
COVID.
Yes.
Which, and I would say
But
Chloe's
increased
Sunshine, the
maintenance.
Yeah.
surface in there,
Yeah.
it really suffered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Council, I've got a suggestion for you. I don't know if you've been following the COVID
Yes.
transmission rate.
I
Oh
have.
my
But
goodness.
we are looking like we did last year in November and December.
Right.
So we don't know the slope of that curve. We know the slope, but we just don't know where it's going to peak.
Right.
What's critical to the administration right now is they have money to be able to respond to wherever that curve goes.
Mhm.
And that might be directly to COVID expenditures like, paying people, COVID leave and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What would you think by the time November rolls around? We're thinking about a strategic planning meeting in November this year that we put on the agenda for that meeting, because we will know whether it's peaked or whether it's still going.
Hmm.
Then a discussion of where else that money might go,
That's
but
probably
allowing them to
wise.
use it now for those emergency things is rated directly with COVID.
I think that's acceptable.
Well, it sounds like we're already spending some of that on hazard pay, so I think that's a no-brainer.
Not hazard pay, the COVID, just.
COVID
Logistically,
leave.
leave.
Qualify
Mhm.
for it.
Yeah.
Right,
so
okay,
Yeah, the hazard pay ended June 30th.
okay.
And if it gets high enough again, which it
I
looks
think
like it
we're
will,
already to the peak of the last time,
we'll
so.
probably, if you're okay with it, we'll institute a consideration for hazard pay again.
Okay.
And it actually expands who is eligible for that list on number 5.
Interesting. Cool.
You good with that approach?
Yes.
Okay,
It's wise.
okay, can we move on?
Yes.
Steve, thank you. Let's talk about community and economic development with an inspector.
Oh, this is water sewer.
Okay, back and forth.
You're back on the hot seat.
Okay,
So the try to be succinct here. Basically, we want to be able to hire somebody to help our inspectors like now. And we have a couple scenarios that we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but as you know, we're experiencing a lot of growth. Our inspectors were absolutely slammed with residential development, to add in 2 large apartment complexes and a temple. They're, so previously I came and presented a scenario. Yeah, I can share that. Or, yeah, thanks. So in this left column, this is what we have now. This is Ken. He works 20 hours code enforcement, 20 hours inspecting. So we thought that he would be retiring to serve a mission at the end of the year. But because of the COVID rates, they're like, oh, well, what if they're not calling new missionaries?
You just have to do it from the living room.
Yeah, but so the middle column is what we previously assumed, that he would leave and we would hire a new inspector immediately, and then begin around the first year we would hire 20 hours of code enforcement. So you'd have 40, 20, so 60 hours. Right now we're at 40, so we bumped 20 hours to 60. So we don't know, potential variation if no retirement. Regardless, we'd still like to just hire that person, even the unknown, assuming that he doesn't retire. You can see we wouldn't force him out. So we would potentially end up increasing the 40 hours instead of just increasing by 20 hours. So that's where I'm here. Again, I'm sorry that I'm back, but
so why can't you just hire for the part-time to fill in the need, with the caveat to the applicant that it may turn into full-time if that's what they're interested in?
Because I can't even get applicants for full-time. We could certainly try a part-time, but that doesn't meet.
Maybe somebody would be willing to.
My building official is asking for this plus 1, but I'm telling him to get through this, I'd hate to hire 2 and then have to let anybody off if it didn't warrant it. Just, I guess, short answer.
I think there's too much in limbo here to make a permanent. This is what I'm worried about, is we don't know what's going to happen to the one. And a lot of what we approved was pending what we were assuming was happening. So now we're reacting and we still don't know what's happening. So it could change yet again.
Yeah. All I know.
And how does that affect anybody that we hire?
All I know is that we need somebody. We're kind of an emergency situation. We need to hire somebody now. And the guy we have now, has had surgery and vacation. I really think that the scenario that I previously presented you is going to play out, but I just wanted to be transparent and add in that there's a possibility if he doesn't go, then we could be ramping up an extra 20 hours above what we thought we would get. So,
and the budget, what's coming in the pipe, for the foreseeable future as far as development goes. It sounds like the budget's going to cover it anyway, but with fees.
So that's where I was going to go with this. We're talking budget increase, but
it's covered.
But it's all billable hours that he is billing for services he's providing. So while we are doing a budget increase, there's not really an increase in cost because the quote unquote revenue from the things he's doing will cover the time he's spending. So you kind of break even. That accurate?
And the only risk, and this is just the nature of this type of business,
is the risk is the commit, because what happens if it doesn't sustain?
Yeah.
And now you have to either cut somebody back or let them go. That's the difficult part.
Yeah.
So what's interesting, and no one's got a crystal ball, but everyone was projecting a huge recession during the coronavirus.
And
it never showed up.
A building frenzy.
Not in Utah.
And it's because our population is booming.
Not in Utah, not anywhere.
So I don't have a crystal ball, but this one, even though it looks like a budget increase, it isn't really, because I don't think we're actually committing new funds, because those funds will be recovered by the actions he's doing.
And right now, that's okay that it's being covered like that. What I don't want to see is 6 months from now, say, we have this person, we don't want to let him go, we could find other things for them to do, but it would have to come out of these budgets. Then it really is.
Then we have a new, yeah.
We've just found a way to create an employee that we don't necessarily need.
Yeah, I can tell you based off of the overtime hours that my guys are working right now and the development projects we have in the pipeline, like we could use this and one, but
So
I'm trying to be conservative as possible.
Are we paying them overtime
Time and a half.
money?
Time and a half.
So
It's
we
costing
pretty
us
much are going to.
This is cheaper than.
Yeah,
Again, my issue is not here. My issue is what happens
Well,
if
sure.
it changes.
I agree
Then
with
we
you,
let
Dave. I
them
just
go.
don't know that happens in 6 months. I mean, it sounds like we have the pipeline for it.
Couple,
I
3
mean,
years probably.
Yeah, it sounds like at least 3 years.
And I would think.
I'm okay with this, given the nature of what's going on.
And I would
here.
think anybody who has a skill has got to be accepted that if the demand goes down, that you would expect a RIF.
right. That's any,
Well,
Any business.
job
Any
in the
job.
world is susceptible to being done with, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, we let them go.
So, just to be clear on the commitment here, if the current inspector leaves, then is it,
We'd still go back to the hiring the extra 20.
yeah, is that what we're
We
saying?
go back
or
to
are we
scenario
saying-
2, right?
right,
Yeah, the middle column.
right.
I think, yeah, I think we fall back to the middle column, and then we'd evaluate, and
As
if at that time, we're still like,
So this
Yeah.
is just in case it doesn't.
Right.
yes.
All right, under those circumstances, okay.
You good?
But at that time, when things start solidifying, I do think it's worth reevaluating to see if we want to keep it at 80 or if 60 is getting us by.
Thanks, guys. Sorry for the unsure.
Okay.
But we're doing the best we can.
This is
Yeah.
everything,
The
everything. in
nature of the
life.
Rona.
Everything in life.
Okay, let's
including
go,
Rona.
let's go around the horn. Dave, do you have anything we need to?
So you'll start noticing construction out along the causeway that is part of the sewer pipeline project. If you would like more information, there is a website. I left some cards with Brody that will help you get to that website quickly.
How long are they gonna
QR
have
codes.
3,000 shut?
Well, 3,000 is going to be shut on and off for a while because of the freeway. That's not.
No,
because
I
of-
know, but right now it's sewer. So why, for how long? Do you know?
Yeah, in theory, it'll be done this week,
Okay, good.
Oh, good, okay.
but that's,
It's not long term.
and it bothers me too,
I
because
know.
I'm affected by it in a
Yeah,
major
I'm
way.
just saying, it's,
I
I
don't
just
think
don't
I've
want
ever
weeks and
had to
weeks.
drive west as many times in the last week as I have.
So it's but in theory, it's done this week. The end of the week, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got one.
Just thought I'd ask.
Okay, that's it.
We have an arts council appointment that will handle it business meeting.
Yeah, maybe we could talk to the arts council again.
Okay.
Oh, we have the reappointment.
The reappointment.
Yes, that one, yes.
That one, that's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
So the Parks Advisory Committee met. So obviously, we've been talking about multiple things over the past few weeks. They still have not got a formal recommendation on 2 of the things. So obviously, you guys have seen the things they're kind of looking at right now is the Ute League. And it's probably worth having some discussion there just because it is kind of a change in direction. But so yeah, when that comes forward, we're going to have a tough decision to make. Same thing with the BMX facility. I know there's some.
Where is that being proposed? Nobody knows? Because boy, they sure think it's gonna be on the equestrian.
So right.
Well, that's because somebody posted, and it's supposedly it's from the BMX group. I don't know this except for I got a bunch of calls today.
Yeah, and I
A
got,
ton of calls.
and I'm like,
And
no.
people are like, so why have they announced that this is going on the equestrian park?
And no, none of us were
I
like,
didn't
what?
think that
We
was.
haven't even seen it.
This
And
is
why,
something
we
I
and
haven't
why
seen
would
it
we
yet.
give up one asset?
But I
for
will
another?
tell
Right.
you that that is the preferred site by the Parks Advisory Committee. Again, but that doesn't matter what their preference is. It's what this council decides. So that's probably going to be the recommendation you'll see. It sounds like they are in favor of moving the equestrian park. Because the thing is, I'll tell you what. Well, we can't talk about it right now.
Okay.
So anyway, I can talk to each of you offline
Right.
about the pros and cons
Just
and
write us
everything.
an
They'll
email.
probably hear it again on September 15th, I think it is.
Or
The
right
Parks
in
Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it might be worth, if you guys want to sit in the peanut gallery, it would probably be good to hear the discussion.
Would you mind sending us just an email to remind us when that
Sure,
comes up?
absolutely.
That'd be great.
And then the other item that was supposed to come before us was we have someone wanting to put a hockey rink in the city. They have not shown up twice now, so
Oh,
it was
sure
tabled
that's
again.
Any kind of precursor to what they
I don't
like to
think
work
that's
with.
going very well.
But other than that, so that's kind of the things they're looking at right now. Again, no official recommendations, but there's a lot of interesting things going on in there, and I'm looking forward to bringing that to you. I've tried to give you guys reports as things have come up.
I
And
haven't seen any of your emails there.
Yeah, I just saw the one today.
So the last one that there was actually a big meeting was when I sent you guys the email about the BMX. It was probably about 2 months ago.
Oh, okay, a while back.
Yes.
Okay.
So this committee doesn't meet bi-weekly like a lot of them do.
I'm like, what?
And so the big discussions were a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. And so you have all of that. There's not a lot of new information since then on either the Ute League or the BMX facility. And then the disaster committee meeting is meeting Thursday. So, but yeah, if you have questions on those, I know you guys are getting a lot of questions. Feel free to give me a call and let's talk about it, and I'll try and bring you guys up to speed on everything. A lot of it's in that email, just go back and review it. But if you have more questions, please, because you're going to be getting a lot of questions now due to some unfortunate announcements being made.
By whom?
Rather premature.
Somebody that doesn't have the authority. to do
Yeah,
so.
no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we haven't approved anything, so
We haven't even seen anything.
so having someone say we're approving anything is somewhat premature.
Yes.
Okay, so illumination is next week. We've been working on this forever.
Oh my goodness.
Sarah Fry, James Violet, we have a cute girl, Tara Goodson is gonna kick it off with she's a Down syndrome girl who is Miss Coronet right now. And she's gonna come perform for us to start things off, and Boots from all the youth groups in the area about mental wellness and resilience, and it should be really wonderful. And then the big, that's here at Founders, by the way. Last year was at Syracuse High.
So we wanted it to be more community,
Yeah.
everyone be welcome, not this isn't just a high school thing.
So we're just tickled about it, and they're just thrilled that we can have a gathering and have the fireworks. So that will be next week. And so please tell anybody you know, just tell them about it. Then we're gonna miss the night out for crime. Well, we have our police academy starting back up.
Yeah.
Right? That's tomorrow. Anyway, that's all.
With that, Zebby's had to pull out, unfortunately, but we still have 6 food trucks that are gonna be there. He's going to be on vacation and doesn't have enough staff. Can't hire anybody to run his food truck.
I have a
so-
question about the illumination.
Yeah.
Those veteran earplugs.
Oh, yeah.
Have they come?
I don't know. That was Viviana that was gonna do it.
We'll have to check with Viviana about it.
Yeah, I just told her about it when you said
Yeah,
she had
and she
permission.
responded to me. She said she's
Okay.
gonna take them to City Hall, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
And I haven't seen any advertisements for them either.
She's like in her last month of pregnancy, so
Yeah.
who knows?
She may
just saying.
just exhausted.
First baby.
I wish I
so
could
who
say
knows?
I've been there.
Okay, I'm just
I haven't
saying,
been there.
It might just be-
exhaustion just might be setting in. Oh, also, sorry, I didn't get a mosquito abatement report. I will write one up soon, but there is some interesting things with the airport still. We are structuring it really well though, so that we can reserve some funds. Once we paid off a bond, just got paid off last month, and a second one should be paid off shortly. And then those monies are now going to go to a reserve to buy out Salt Lake City for them leaving their portion of the hangar, because they're going the helicopter route. And so we'll be able to afford that when they actually pull out. So luckily that shouldn't involve a huge increase when that happens at all. They are talking about a slight increase it'll be next year because of staff. They can't get anybody to work there. So send them their way. They could use a couple more.
I'd like
farmers
to
still.
fly a helicopter.
We're not doing helicopters. That's way expensive. Salt Lake is crazy, but they got more money than we do currently. So, and they just had last year an increase of 100% of their budget, and then are proposing another huge increase this year. Salt Lake. So we're not into that game. We'll go the route with drones and planes and kids on bikes and poggers.
I don't have
Anything? Okay. The only thing I would mention to you, I sit on the Transcom committee of Wasatch Front Regional Council, and intent letters are due for grants, Robert, in September.
Oh, yeah, for the next round.
For the next round, and just make staff aware of surface transportation. Yeah.
Have got approved that we're still waiting on. It's 2024.
Okay. What about the 500 West?
That's the one.
Is it? So we will begin at 24?
Is this part of the money that we could use to build a bicycle path out to the
There
island?
is a component of that, yeah. But it works better if we play with a couple of cities together. That's what
Okay.
we do.
Neighboring.
Well, 'cause, yeah, where that was prioritized very highly on
Yeah.
their plan, the inner city
Yeah.
plan. I think we ought to really push that and say, hey, this has been prioritized throughout the district, the county, and it would behoove us to really push this, especially as we have a freeway coming online that you can ride all the way from Provo to wherever it is north of us, but we miss the state park along the path. It seems like an oversight.
Minus Sardine. I don't think biking through Sardine is a wise idea. Just
It is
saying.
not.
No. Go.
I have a hard time driving through there, let alone.
And
It
Valley
is
View
not.
isn't any better, so maybe stop and.
And I lost a friend there
Tremont.
just a couple of weeks ago doing that very thing.
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Really, yeah.
Just a couple of things. You probably noticed we've got the Flip the Strip going on here at City Hall and Community Center. So
Nice, I saw you.
that should be done in a week or so.
Nice.
And just in case you're interested, we've got Syracuse native Hunter Woodall competing in Tokyo
I did see that.
in the Paralympics again. So
Nice.
Go 100.
yep, native son for Syracuse and cheer him on.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion. A
So
second.
moved.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Do we need a motion to adjourn from a work session?
No. I want you to feel bored.
Pass this
How
to
about,
Brody.
I'm leaving.
Steal it. Okay.
Can I tell you guys, this meeting is much more informative. You all know what you're talking about. I feel sorry for West Point City. You guys are